Welcome, everyone, to episode 35 of 3 in the Keystone. It's Tuesday night. I have Al Ryan and Chris Guest with me. And before we get going tonight, Al, I got some beef with you, dude.
Yeah, what's that? You never say your name in the intro, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't know
Adam
who he is.
Seltzer.
I just been going with it the whole time for 35
It
episodes.
was a shtick.
I don't really know him
I'm
like
staying
that.
anonymous. So you've put together our Instagram now, and if you're not following us, it's at 3K_podcast. Make sure you give us a follow. But you started a good segment where we're putting out every night where the Sixers play, we're putting out a prop bet. And tonight you put one out and you say, "Oh, Al's 5-0, Al's 5-0." But
Right.
Adam's 2 for his last 2. I'm 4-1, dude. Let's not pretend like 80% is not profitable. Like, don't be
Four,
pushing me down to push yourself up.
4-1 is great. It's not as good as five for five. And also, listen, I haven't been posting the odds, but that 4-1, that one loss you posted was probably like minus 300 on the juice. You might be down a unit or two.
I don't think so. There,
All I
maybe
know
you
is
put a team effort. You say we're 9-1, 9-1 combined.
I had no idea what you were. I'm gonna be honest. I had no idea what your record was.
As a social media manager, you got to be better.
I'm
The
looking for
social
my
media
first.
maven. Let me correct you. The maven.
I'm looking for my first win. So don't listen to the.
Well, you got to
Chris
post a
Guest
pic to get a win.
Yeah, King Mush was one and done.
thing. Yeah, and I lost tonight too with the over 58.5 for the first quarter. It was only 44 points.
And
No
he
one
didn't
knew.
I didn't post it.
Yeah, no one knew.
Okay, all right. Well, if you
Yeah,
get better,
you only
so I'm
asked-
2 then.
In the text thread, you only asked what the total was. You could have wanted the under. We don't know. But make sure you're following us on the Instagram. We have some interesting stuff coming up. Al, do you want to talk about what you have coming up for March Madness?
Yeah, so obviously in the spirit of March Madness, with Selection Sunday being right around the corner, being this Sunday, the boys, we all decided to get together and put together a list of the greatest sports nicknames of all time. This kind of stems from our little chat about the 90s players and Chris rattling off Boy Gorgeous, aka Charles Barkley's nicknames. So we each took a sport, and then we left another 16 up to I don't know. Are we leaving it up to Liam or the fans or the listeners? I should say.
I think we're just going to put it together combined. I asked Liam for a couple of nicknames. He gave me 2, and that was the end of it.
All right, totally fine. So anyway, all you guys need to know, the listeners, is follow us on Instagram at 3K_podcast. We're going to be putting out some sports nicknames for you to vote on to see if we can't narrow down 64-1 in the next couple of weeks.
You think it'd be like when do you think you can get the first round posted? Maybe before next week's podcast?
It'll definitely be before next week's podcast. Getting it up over the weekend may be tricky. I'm at a wedding in Florida this weekend, and I won't be home until Monday. So I'm going to be working on it poolside if I can, or even at the airport Monday morning. We'll see.
Key Largo. Good luck.
You got it.
All right, let's jump into segment 1, our Philly recap. And we talked last week, we were coming off a Sixers home loss to the Miami Heat that we kind of excused, but we talked about the meat of the schedule coming up. Since then, the Sixers are 3-1, wins at Miami, a convincing win without Joel Embiid. A win last night against the Indiana Pacers, but the most important win in that stretch was Saturday night at Milwaukee. They snapped the Milwaukee Bucks 16-game win streak. Chris, initial thoughts on that game, and does it change your outlook moving forward on this team?
Well, I've been saying I got a weird feeling that they're going to somehow get over the hump this year, and that kind of game, that kind of performance, definitely makes me feel better about that prediction. However, I wish I could say I was that confident while I was watching the game. But like a lot of people, excuse me, around that third quarter when they were down, I believe it was at most 17, 18, something like that at one point. We started texting about, what's all the things wrong with the team and what is going to potentially hinder them from getting over the hump, and if they're even, have a chance against Milwaukee in a series. And then all of a sudden, as we're talking, the lead just goes smaller and smaller and smaller. Next thing you know, we end up winning that game. So I think, and I think I've said this for a while, and I'll hold on to it. I think they can beat Milwaukee. I really do. I think they can beat Milwaukee in the series. They beat them, what's it now, 2 out of 3 so far this year. They've outscored them in total for all 3 games. The only game that the Bucks beat us was at the end by 2 in the home opener this year. So we can play with Milwaukee. Boston's the one that I'm worried about, but we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think that they are in a. I just want to think that kind of game gives them confidence, if nothing else, that they can go into a building of a team that is at their level, if not maybe even a little bit beyond their level, and still, come out of there with the win. And confidence goes a long way in sports, as we all know. And so seeing that play out, seeing that happen, especially the way it happened, ending that, I mean, that 16-game winning streak was very impressive. And I looked through that list of teams that they beat, and I wanted to be like, well, they beat this team that they were beating some good teams in there. It wasn't just a bunch of mush. Like they had a good mix of legit teams that they were beating up too. So, hey, we should be proud of what we did. Teams should be proud of what they did. It gives me a little bit more faith in them. And so our stars stepped up. I mean, our stars stepped up big time. That's what we need to have. So it was great to see.
You know what, guys? And you guys got to help me with this because you guys watch the games closer than I do. I'm the father of the group. Sometimes I have kid stuff going on. I can't always watch every minute of every game. This team puts my brain in a friggin' blender. When you watch this team, man, you get the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I've said it about Joel Embiid, how I believe that he has of every player in the league as an individual, I think he has the highest ceiling on any given night as far as performance goes. But he also has probably the lowest floor among the elite elites of the league, which I believe he's one of them, maybe, of the top 6 or 7 guys in the league. And I feel that this team is the same. This team also has the highest ceiling and the lowest floor. And you just never know what you're going to get, not even in a given night, but in a given 5-minute stretch. Like when you look at these last 8 games, they've played all playoff teams. They're 5-3. And those 5 wins and 3 losses have come in like the zaniest ways possible, with them being down double digits in fourth quarters and them being up double digits. And it's madness to me. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if you guys, hopefully you can help me out. I'll go back and listen to this pod tomorrow morning when it's released and maybe make some sense of things. But I don't know if I should be like buying stock right now in the sense that we could possibly beat a Milwaukee, possibly even beat a Boston in 7 games, or if I should still be staying steady with my prediction of I think that this team's ceiling is probably an Eastern Conference final, and that's if everything goes exactly perfectly. So help me out here. What are we seeing out of this team?
Chris,
I said the other day, they're a reactionary team. They're very reactionary. They have to get punched in the mouth before they wake up a lot of times. And that was an example again on Saturday night. They were down 17 points late, and they woke up, went on a big run, and got out of there with a win in the knapsack out the back door. And but you can't. That's not sustainable. You can't do that for playoff series and playoff rounds. Like that's just not going to work. You got to set a tone at some point.
It's been a while since we brought up hockey, isn't it? It's kind of like, wasn't it that Stanley Cup Flyers team, the most recent one, that would infamously go down in the first period every game and then come back? Like they had to be down in the first period before they came back. Wasn't that team?
The 2010 team you're talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know about that, because I remember in that Montreal series, they pretty much they had a good handle on that series. So I don't remember. But I mean, before that, they played Boston and they were down 0-3. So in that regard, they were down a lot, and they were down 3-0 in Game 7.
Right.
And came back and won. So that definitely was a reactionary round, at least. I don't know I can't remember if that was how they were for the duration of that playoff run though. But you might be right.
Let me throw my 2 cents in here. And the one thing that we talk about all the time, and we talk about it with Joel, and we talk about it with all these guys, is when you watch a guy for 82 games or 70 games, you find the flaws and it comes out night to night. I think you'd be shocked at how much other fan bases feel the same way about their teams with the highest highs and lowest lows. You look at the Boston Celtics fans right now, and they're in a tizzy about their team. We would trade for their team in a second.
Yeah.
But they've lost 2 to the Knicks. They lost a game last night to Cleveland that they shouldn't have lost. And they're worried about all the complaints and issues that they have with their team right now. So I think that it's just a matter of the ebbs and flows of the basketball season, especially within games, it comes and goes, and you're going to be up a lot of points and you're going to be down a lot of points, and you're going to have, good games and you're going to have bad games. And I actually disagree with you a little bit on the floor for Embiid. I think he's fixed that over the years. He doesn't have those. Remember the game against Toronto when he had 0 points?
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago?
That's
That
what I'm
doesn't
referencing
really
pretty
happen
often when I talk
anymore.
about that.
No.
His consistency has really, really come to light. And I just think that, again, I think you just see it a lot more if watching other teams, that it's an NBA thing. It's not a Sixers thing.
And I think, well, go ahead. So I don't want to interrupt you.
No. That was all I had as far as ebbs and flows. In regards to playoff matchups, I agree with you, Chris. They match up okay with Milwaukee. I think they can play with Milwaukee because realistically, the teams that Sixers have problems with are fast and athletic, and they want to get up and down, and the Sixers aren't those things. And that's what Boston brings to the table, is Boston has those 4 guards. They got Brown and they got Tatum, and all those dudes get up and down. You look at Milwaukee and like Brook Lopez, he ain't trying to run the floor. Giannis is obviously a beast. He can get up and down, but like even Drew Holiday is an athletic point guard, but he doesn't want to play at a fast pace. He wants to back you down. He wants to play in the half court set, and that plays to the Sixers' strength.
And when when he really focused on guarding Giannis, especially in that fourth quarter, Giannis didn't do much.
Embiid's the toughest matchup for Giannis in the entire league. The problem is he can only be on him for so long because you don't want him to get in foul trouble, throughout the game. And Giannis is going to put you in foul trouble.
And I would have loved to have seen PJ on him more if he didn't get hurt in that game, because I was curious to see, especially knowing the guy, being his former teammate and everything else, if he knew any kind of tricks of the trade that Giannis uses and could use it against him defensively. But I think that, we took a big punch from Milwaukee in that game. It felt like early in the game, they were making every shot.
In the Grayson Allen quarter.
Grayson Allen, 20 points in the quarter. Yeah, I mean, ridiculous stuff. And we still ended up getting out there with a win. So,
and Giannis was like, what was he, 15 of 17 from the line, something like that?
3 from the line, yep. And so we talk about what that does to the Sixers' psyche to win a game like that. Well, what does it do to the Bucks losing a game like that against a team like the Sixers? That's stuff you got to think about also. So I think that series would be a bloodbath. I think that's a 7-game series. I think the Sixers can definitely win it. But again, we'll see how it plays out. But real quick,
the scary thing is right now, the way it's looking is we might have to go through Boston before we get to Milwaukee.
I was about to say, yeah. We mentioned, and I've been going to bat for Joel throughout this whole time, but one of the knocks against him is the turnovers. And I was looking the other night. He is actually 7th in turnovers per game in the league at 3.5 turnovers a game. Obviously, he has high usage, but the guys above him are all superstars just like he is. So it's not like he's down there with a bunch of randos that can't dribble the ball and can't, get things done on the court. Trae Young leads the league with 4 turnovers a game, 4.1. Giannis is actually second, 3.9. We never hear those arguments from people. It's always Giannis is this. We don't hear that he turns the ball over 4 times a game. All right, Luka, point guard, obviously he's going to have a more amount, just like Trae is. He has 3.7. Russ, same thing, 3.6. LaMelo, point guard, 3.6. And then Nikola Jokic.
Oh,
yeah.
How's that factored into the VORP alert?
I don't have a problem with Embiid's turnovers in the regular seasons. It's when that goes up in the playoffs is my issue. I think his turnover numbers are fine. Again, with the amount he handles the ball, it's not really an issue.
And to be fair, he's tied with Jokic. He's not more or less than he's right there. They're both 3.5 a game. But you never hear about Jokic turning the ball over. All you hear is he's a perfect triple double going 5 for 5.
But I've never heard a bad thing about Jokic. Does the dude ever sin in his life?
He has no personal sin. He has nothing.
He can do no wrong.
Yeah.
I want to transition a little bit because I think it's criminal that we are this far into the podcast and we haven't talked about James Harden and the fourth quarter against Milwaukee.
I wanted to bring him up. God.
I think it was 17 points in the fourth quarter. And Al, you asked on a text thread the other day, maybe even last week, is Harden the most underrated player in Philadelphia? I think it was sports history. I don't want to go there because
Sixers history
because he has to do it in a playoff run, but this may be the most underrated season that we've seen. The fact that guy was not an all-star when he is he probably should be an all NBA player this year. Maybe not first team, but he should be on one of the 3 teams. He's been that good this year.
Well,
Yeah.
and I was bringing it up a few weeks ago. Like, can he sneak into the MVP conversation? I don't think ultimately he will, because everybody's on Jokic's set as it is anyway, and Joel's barely like at this point even challenging Jokic in the eyes of the talking heads in the national media. But he's had a hell of a season. I saw something I wish I had saved it but he was like one of 2 guys right now, and no one has done that like in I forget how many years, but there's 2 guys this year doing it. Seltzer, you might know, or Al, you might know too, but I know Seltzer, you locked in a lot with like different stats for the like daily with NBA stuff, but shooting over, I think he's like shooting over 40%, averaging over 10 assists and 20 points a game. I think only like 2 guys have done that.
Probably Stockton's one of them.
I would bet you Halliburton's probably close this year. I'm going to pull him
It
up.
might have been him and Halliburton, and that's why it came up. But like, it's a statistic that it's like rarely, if ever, been done. And then this year they were saying that there's 2 guys that are doing it.
Yeah, Halliburton's 20.5 points, 10 assists, and 40.7% from 3. So that's why, and they played last night, so that's why that stat would have come up.
And he showed out.
Yeah, he was
In that
tremendous.
fourth quarter, you started to mention, Adam. James Harden had 19 points, 4 assists, 2 boards, 7 for 7 from the stripe. I mean, he's absolutely the catalyst for that fourth quarter. He is playing at a level that I don't know what he has to do to get praise from the national media, let alone the local media at this point. And I get it. A lot of this has to do with past transgressions and what he's done in other franchises and other cities and the way he carried himself at those places. But Jesus, dude, the guy is playing at a level that is top 10 in the league right now. And it's not getting mentioned at all whatsoever. And it's part of hashtag the disrespect. I don't know what else. I mean, if let's just like swap players, right, and just put like a more liked guy, a more media friendly guy in that position, like let's say it just happened to be like a Dame Lillard or whatever, like they'd be slobbering over him. You hear nothing about him and about what he's doing for this team, and it's you said it, it's criminal.
So Al, you know, from being on Twitter a lot, there's a movement in the Twitterverse of Harden fans saying how biased folks are around the league, national media, and just fans in general, in terms of a negative light of James Harden. And this even happened before he came to Philly. This is like a thing that, you know, different times where he arguably should have won an MVP and didn't, and have averaged all these like historical figures and didn't get anything to show for it. And now that he's on our team, I don't know if it's him rubbing people the wrong way for whatever reason. I don't, but you're right. I think that he has been disrespected big time. He's definitely been disrespected here. Exhibit A is the All-Star game situation, but it's strange to me. It's really strange to me, the NBA universe we're in right now, where Nikola Jokic is the best player that's ever played basketball, and James Harden is just like, oh yeah, he's, you know, the Sixers. Like, we hear the duo of Harden and Embiid, and we, you know, people mention that aspect of it, but they don't mention Harden's greatness in himself. Like, he's a great player by himself too. Like,
it's just the playoff transgressions. He's choked in a lot of big games, and I think from a regular season standpoint, he's done it all. We've all seen it. I mean, he's had, as good as he's been this regular season, he's had regular seasons where he's been 2 or 3 times better. He averaged 35 a game one year.
Yeah, 36.
So I just think it's until he gets over that hump in the playoffs, it's just like, oh, it's another ho-hum James Harden season. And it shouldn't be that way because
right.
It's of the way he's, like, again, he's aged, and, you know, clearly last year he wasn't healthy. And we're at the point this year where, dude, when he takes a 3-pointer, I think it's going in.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. Just now you just triggered something. What's the difference in Harden and Embiid in terms of the playoff situation? Because before, you've held that against Embiid. Now you're saying it shouldn't matter for Harden. It shouldn't matter for either one of them because the present's the present. The past is the past.
No,
What's your difference in those two? Because they each have had situations in the past in the playoffs where you could argue that they didn't do enough for their team, but one's being held negatively and the other is being not held at all for it.
So I don't mean to not hold James Harden to it. Like, again, for instance, I think Joel Embiid deserves MVP this year. Maybe he's in that conversation. It's 50-50 to me in regards to him versus Jokic this year. However, all that gets wiped away if he blows it in the playoffs again this year. Like, it doesn't matter what happens in the regular season. And I feel that way about Harden. Like, I still want to appreciate how good he's been in the regular season. But if it comes to the playoffs and he blows it again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We talked about it in the preseason when we previewed the Sixers, that nothing in the regular season that they do really matters. All that matters is when it comes to the playoffs, because we've seen them flame out in the second round. And if that happens again, what does it matter if they win 40 games, 50 games, or 60 games? It doesn't really make a difference if they flame out in the playoffs. So again, I want to appreciate what I'm seeing, and I do from Joel. He's been fantastic. And I do from James. He's also been great. But if they screw up in the playoffs, does it matter?
Well, and the ironic thing is, I think Jokic probably deserves MVP this year and not the previous 2 years.
That's the hardest part about this is he's having the best season of his career.
Right.
It's to the point where it's hard to discredit how good he's actually been. But it's these other seasons where Embiid probably deserved it last season specifically.
Oh, absolutely, last year.
And that's what makes this very difficult is Jokic is actually having a monumental season.
Yeah. And they're number one in the West and the whole thing.
Right.
As far as the playoffs go, too, though, I think that the expectations have been different for Joel Embiid-led Sixers teams versus Houston-led James Harden teams.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't think? You don't think that Joel Embiid has been expected to take this team to at least the NBA Finals, whereas James Harden ran into the Golden State Warriors 4 times?
Yeah, but James Harden had a couple of Houston teams that won 60+ games.
And that last
Golden State is something, but like those teams still had finals expectations.
I agree, but with the benefit of hindsight, he lost to 4 Golden State teams. He lost to the Lakers team in the bubble, and then he lost to the Portland team. The Portland team was that's the one that you could put pin on, but to lose to 4 Golden State teams, I mean that's Golden State. It's an all-time great team and an all-time great run.
In hindsight, yes, but in the moment, probably not. I mean, they had that team. They took them to 7 games. They had them beat.
I know.
Chris Paul gets hurt. Who knows?
Right.
So
I'm just saying I can't really hold him for that. I mean, that's like we don't crap on Karl Malone and Gary Payton and all those guys out west that had to run into Michael Jordan all those years.
But Al, he's also laid some duds. It hasn't been that they lost. He's laid a couple duds in.
And the difference too, Al, I think, is the Jazz that you were mentioning. That was in the finals. Harden ran into a juggernaut team within his own conference and couldn't get over that hump. But that last year, that was the last year, Seltzer, right? When they got to the
No, I don't think it was last year in Houston. I think it was the year before that.
Houston, the last year he got there with them was they lost to the Lakers.
In the bubble.
Yeah, in the bubble.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the year before that. That was
before that was Golden State.
Yeah, because Chris Paul and Harden that was the best chance. And then Westbrook came. He had at least 1 year with Westbrook in Houston.
Yeah, the year before the bubble is what I'm talking about then. That was the year, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he have like 5 or 6 straight 50-point games too in that?
Right. I remember the Corey Brewer was guarding him when the Sixers.
Yeah. I was there for that. That was wild. Yeah. A couple of those Rockets teams were, especially that last one when Paul was there with them and stuff. There was expectations there, but
even
he
I
also was more in his prime then, and
I hate to go back to it because he was a baby, but he didn't play. He played horrible in the 2012 finals when he was the 6th man for the Thunder.
Yeah, but how much can you pin that on him?
I'm just saying it's an observation.
That was some growing pains going on there, so I can't really.
Listen, just an observation. I'm not blaming him again. That's before his prime, before all that stuff.
I know he gave the Owls some business in the tournament, but the year before that, I remember that.
At the end of the day, they both got to show out in the playoffs. Last year the guy we had is not the same guy we have this year, but the second half of that Miami game 6, he didn't shoot the ball.
Well, and that we know definitively now. I don't think there's a doubt that the hamstring issue was legit. Yeah. He had to get surgery on it. He clearly didn't play 100% because of it. That was not James Harden last year.
Right. I agree. I think we're all in the same boat there.
Yeah, and I think and he's still trying to get the bag too. He's still trying to get another bag.
From
I
the
think it's
Sixers
gonna
or
come
from
in.
Houston?
It don't matter. Whoever, he still wants to get that max. I think he cut the Sixers a break last year. This year, I don't think there's any breaks. He's gonna want the max. And if we get far into the postseason, you got to give it to him. You got to give it to him.
Yeah, I
At
mean,
that point, I don't think there's an option at that point. You have to keep this team together. If they go if they go anywhere further than if they get into the conference finals, even, you have to keep this team together. Tobias will be in his last year of his deal next year. He'll be here unless you can get some sort of upgrade that we're not expecting in a trade over the summer, which I don't think will happen at that point, because they want to keep this team together. James got to get paid by the Sixers if that happens.
I don't even want to think about the offseason. I don't even want to.
No, you're right. Fair enough. You're right. I mean, we got to enjoy, like I said, live in the moment.
Yep.
Can we talk about one guy that I think and again, it's because of the way he performed now this past week, but we all crapped on Jalen McDaniels in last week's pod. And just watching him, guys, he's objectively an upgrade over Matisse.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, it's not even close. Like I trust him way more than I trusted Matisse Thybulle coming into a game.
Yeah, Seltzer and I were talking before we went on the before we started recording about that, and I said the same thing, that he definitely is an upgrade, and he's a solid guy, not only for right now, but also I would be comfortable keeping him for a couple more years, letting him grow and develop in our organization. But we do got to see it against legit playoff teams too, though. We still haven't really seen that yet.
But I showed flashes against Milwaukee. He gave him a little spark.
I was saying, I have faith he could do it.
But again, I talked last week. I said the priorities the rest of the season. I had 3 of them. I said health. That's obviously first and foremost. I said Tyrese Maxey needs to get back into a flow, which he seems he has. And I said Jalen McDaniels needs to play 20 minutes a night so you can see what you got.
Yeah.
And all 3 of those things have happened. And again, I think the Twitterverse it cracks me up. People were clamoring for McDaniels to take Tobias Harris' starting job after the game last night.
No,
that game last night, that was a game built for Jalen McDaniels. They were just like, let's run up and down the floor as fast as we can.
Yeah.
We'll dunk. We won't play any defense, and we'll get buckets around the rim. And that's built for Jalen McDaniels. You get to the playoffs, and you need a corner 3 mate. I promise you want Tobias Harris shooting it over Jalen McDaniels.
Listen, there's a lot. All you gotta do is be on Twitter for 5 minutes. You could see I think more than any other sport, the NBA has the most casual fans. There's a lot of casual fans that watch basketball that really don't know what they're looking at.
I wouldn't even say they're casual fans, Chris. These are just idiots.
Yeah, starting all of a sudden, coming from Charlotte to us, and then putting him in the starting lineup of a playoff series over a guy that's been here for 3 years, 4 years now at this point is ludicrous. As much as we have ups and downs with Tobias, that's a slap in the face. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And look, Jalen McDaniels is going to have to play in these playoff games, so it's important to get him minutes and get him in the flow.
Now, getting him over old boy, over Niang, that's a different ballgame.
Niang made 5 big threes against Milwaukee, my man.
Yeah, dude, they do different things.
Okay,
man.
and he was like, if I'll think back, I think he was probably missed 20 of 25 before that.
Look, shooters are going to go through streaks. You know that.
But then he doesn't give you anything else. He doesn't.
Right. So if he's not making shots, he got to sit. If he's not making shots, he got to sit.
Yeah.
Huh?
If he's not making shots, he has to sit.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. McDaniels is more versatile and helpful on both sides of the ball than he is.
But I told you before we got on, I think part of the issue in that streak was Doc's rotation. For George Niang to be successful, he needs to play with Harden or Embiid on the floor to take attention away and get good shots. He was playing them with that Tyrese Maxey-led group where Maxey draws attention, but Maxey can't get him the ball like Harden or Embiid does, and he's just not getting the same quality looks. He needs to play off of those 2 main guys, and I agree with you. If he's not making shots, he comes off the floor. There's no reason additionally for him to be out there.
Yeah.
Are we ready to talk about Tyrese Maxey? The experiment's over, right? He's a starter.
He's a starter.
26 and a half in his last 4. He shot 58% from 3 in those 4 games. I mean, guys, in my opinion, going forward, the success of this team in the playoffs hinges on Tyrese Maxey. It absolutely hinges on Tyrese Maxey. You know what you're going to get out of Joel Embiid and James Harden. They're going to give it to
Oh,
you, and
do
if they
you?
don't give it to
Do
you,
you?
No, here we
but
go.
no, but if they don't give it to you, you need a guy that's going to be able to step up and potentially get you that 30 piece. And it's Tyrese is the guy. He's the
And he's
only
not scared. He's
He's
not,
not
scared.
scared,
He
no.
showed his rookie year against Atlanta in that series. He's not. He won that game 6 in Atlanta.
I
Yep.
agree.
But he's not scared of it.
Look,
He
I think
is the guy.
I think we all agree that Boston and Milwaukee are a step better than the Sixers, and for the Sixers to compete,
I don't know about
those
Milwaukee.
series,
I don't agree with that.
okay, but for the Sixers to compete in those series, Embiid, Harden, Maxey all need to be on top of their game. That's just the way it is.
But
They all
that's every
play
team,
well.
though. Milwaukee has. Just, I mean, they say the same thing. They have to have Giannis, Chris, and Drew to be on their team too to win
Sure,
series.
but my argument back would be that we've seen them do that. We haven't seen it from the Sixers.
That's a more consistent.
Although Middleton, I don't know what's up with Middleton.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Like he's still not back in the starting lineup.
He's king ugly of the league right now, right?
What'd you say?
He's king ugly of the
Yeah,
league
he's
right now, right?
not a good looking dude. I can
Oh
give you that.
boy.
I'll give you that. Here's my question I have here for you guys. Talking playoffs. Let's say the Sixers finish as the 3 seed. Okay.
I was distracted by what just happened. What'd you say?
Let's say the Sixers finish as the 3 seed.
Okay.
And we're gonna assume New York, Cleveland are the 4 and the 5. Is there any team in the East that scares you in the first round?
Oh,
outside of New York and Cleveland, like of the other teams we would play underneath.
Yeah, I'm talking Miami, I'm talking Brooklyn, I'm talking Atlanta, I'm talking Toronto.
No.
But I will say this.
We talked about this with the Eagles. If you're scared of one of those teams and you're a Sixers fan, get a different sport.
Get a
different
dog.
hobby.
You're scared, get a dog.
I agree.
I will say though, the Knicks are dangerous. The Knicks are like, if God
Knicks
forbid,
Cleveland would be a fantastic series. I would love to see that.
for the Knicks and Cleveland, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But God forbid, if we get out, I got to say, like, I like what the Knicks are doing. They're a fun team to watch. They get at it on both sides of the ball. I love Josh Hart. I hate Villanova. I love their players when they get to the league, though, because they all know how to play. Josh Hart is, I wish we could have got him. I understand why we didn't, but him and Brunson, Randall, we saw before Seltzer a while back. Randall is so much better than Tobias Harris.
Sure.
And at one point, you were not really sure of that. And I don't think that there, I mean, I've always been on Team Randall. There's a lot of people that don't like Julius Randle. I like Julius Randle. And I think he's showing this year, like, he can be a big piece on a really good team.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And you've always been a Randall guy. I'll give you that. But I think the difference has been, and you've seen it this year, is last year he was so much in charge of running the offense and setting up the offense. And he's got Jalen Brunson now. And Jalen Brunson gets him the ball in places where he can score. And he doesn't have to worry about being basically a point forward, which is what he was last year. And he was playing out of position. And you remember last year he was getting booed.
Yeah. And I had to give Jalen Brunson an apology because I was one of the,
You laughed at the contract.
Yeah, but I wasn't the only one.
I know.
A lot of folks did that, but he actually now is a bargain at what he's played. Like, it's insane. Like, you look back at what he got and for what he's given them, like, he's a bargain now.
How bad did Dallas screw that up?
Bad.
Well, they screwed up. They've always screwed up, except for the Doncic thing.
But the Knicks always screw up. I mean, God, it looked terrible on paper. They finally got one right.
Yeah, they did.
I hear you. Going back to the Sixers, I would say, we've talked about how difficult the schedule is the rest of the way. They actually are playing tonight. I said this to Chris when we were off the air. Tonight's their 6th game in 9 nights in 6 different cities, which is insane. However, they do get a little bit of a soft pocket in this rest of the way. 6 of their next 7 are against non-playoff teams, so hopefully they can pad their record a little bit and then buckle up for the last 10. You guys ready for this last 10 games? At Golden State, at Phoenix, at Denver, Dallas at home, Toronto at home, at Milwaukee, Boston at home, Miami, at Atlanta, at Brooklyn, the last 10.
Dude, and so many back-to-backs and 3 games in 5 nights and 3 games in 4 nights. It's just insane, this schedule.
Health. They got to be
put this together.
But I will say this, though. I penciled this tonight in as a loss because of the fact that it was the second leg of a back-to-back. It was the last day of a last game of a road trip. The way that game played out last night, where it was up and down a lot, they're up 18 on the road against a playoff team tonight.
MVP's going off.
Joel, 11 for 15, 27 points. Like, that's impressive. And I'm not saying Minnesota's a great team by any stretch, but they still are a playoff team right now in their conference. And we're in their building, and we played last night, and we're up 18.
Yeah. No, let's hope they close it out. But it's certainly been a good run. Unfortunately, like I said, I think they're, especially with the schedule I talked about, I think we're locked in the 3 seed. So I'm not even sure wins and losses really matter at this point. But it's just great to see them playing well.
And good for Embiid for playing tonight, Adam. You said it. That rest everybody tonight. I would have.
I'm shocked Harrison Tucker playing.
I would put the mortgage on Embiid not playing tonight. So good for him for playing.
Yeah, I think it means a lot to him in the MVP race. He gets that rap of still sitting out games, and I think he fights hard to not want to do that.
Yeah, he's sensitive deep down.
But they did need to sit. I think sitting Harden was the right move. Last night was the first game all year I saw like heavy legs a little bit from him, especially with his jump shot.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think if we could creep up and there's still an outside chance to get to the 2 spot, does that change your mind with that Celtics series being that we have home court?
No, because we blew it before.
Yeah, I just hate the matchup.
It doesn't mean that much.
Okay.
I hate the matchup. Can I give you guys, this is completely off the record, can I give you guys a hot take on the Boston Celtics?
No, don't give it to us.
Yeah, no, end the segment.
Forget it.
All right. Wrap it up.
Yeah, go ahead. What is it?
I don't think that Jaylen Brown is a Celtic at the end of next season.
At the end of next season.
His contract expires at the end of next year. I don't think he's coming back to Boston.
Why is that? I've heard that Boston fans don't like him, but now this year I've heard that they like him more than Tatum.
Right, which is ironic because Tatum's having an MVP caliber season.
Boston fans think schmucks, but
I think Jaylen thinks he wants to be the man, and I think he's going to look for that opportunity to be the man. I think you guys said that people are starting to like Brown more than him. I'm not sure I think it's turning a little bit, but I still think Tatum's
you did at one point.
And I think Brown is basically like, I outplayed this dude in the finals last year. He still gets all the love, maybe not from the local media, but from the national media. It's Tatum. And what do I got to do to earn my respect? It might have to be somewhere else.
And I think he might have a little bit of Kyrie in the sense of he wanted to leave LeBron for that same purpose.
That's a perfect comparison.
Yeah.
Perfect comparison.
And that's the only comparison with Jaylen Brown and Kyrie, because Jaylen Brown seems to have a good head on his shoulders and the whole thing. But I think that he is you might be onto something there as far as him wanting to showcase himself as a number 1 option on a team, or a guy that can be a superstar and carry his team and his city on his back. We'll see, but I would take either one of them in a minute. I know that much.
Absolutely,
100%.
So again,
that was a cold take.
I was going to say that was the opposite of a hot
take. So again, as the Sixers wrap up this 5-game road trip, looking to go 4-1 with a 17-point lead here with 6 minutes, plenty of time left. So who knows what could happen, especially with a back-to-back going into the fourth quarter. But it's been a good stretch. So enjoy your Sixers basketball. Anything else before we wrap this up? The Philly recap week.
Are we the greatest free throw shooting team of all time? Every time I look at like a box score, like the Sixers are like 24 for 26, and Embiid, what was he the other day?
17 for 17 last night.
Yeah,
from your center.
Man, unbelievable. 7'2", 17 for 17. I know I'm talking about 100-point games. Can you imagine 10 years ago saying that there was going to be a center that was going to go 17 for 17 from the line?
It's funny. I don't ever hear Shaq criticize Joel's foul shooting.
Yeah.
I was say I love hearing people who criticize Embiid and they're like, well, he'd average 15 if he didn't have foul shots. Guess what? Not only does he have foul shots, but he makes them at 7 foot at his size and in his position. He makes them better than most guards do. So and he draws legit fouls. He's not just sitting up there like, of course, he's got times where once in a while where he'll take a whatever, he'll
lean in.
But for the most part, he legit gets fouled. It's hard not to foul him. He's huge.
That fat loser, Shaq. In the,
I didn't say that. All right, I like Shaq.
in the Dallas game on Thursday night, Embiid is 7 for 9 at halftime for 17. He had like 17 and 5. And Shaq's like, he's shooting too many fadeaways. He's not getting in the. I'm like, dude, he's 7 for 9 for 17 points. Like, shut up. Like, you decide what you want to say about Joel Embiid before the game starts.
I don't, but it's not
Every
just
single week
it's
with
not
that
just
dude.
Embiid though. That's just how he is with everybody. Like
Dude, he sucks. Like, he sucks.
He clearly doesn't watch a lot of basketball.
I can't. Like, we've talked good about those guys. I'm over them.
No, he's all shtick now, man.
I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
I still think it's funny with him and Kenny and Chuck, though. It's still good TV.
It is. It's still all barbershop.
It's,
like
right.
It's enjoyable. But Adams, when it comes to actual like analysis of the game, he's a clown because he doesn't know what he's saying.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah. So that was it for segment 1 tonight. We're gonna be back. Listen, boys. We gotta do a Philadelphia Phillies preview coming up soon.
We do.
It's
hard to believe that it's right around the corner.
Phillies baseball, and hopefully we get some good news on Andrew Painter. We were hoping to break some news on the pod tonight, but the Phillies seem to be dragging this thing out a little bit. So maybe next week, depending on what else happens in the sports world, we'll do a full Phillies preview for you guys. But we're going to jump into segment 2 next. We're actually going to split our national sports story with some NBA stuff, as well as some QB carousel in the NFL and some predictions on where you think some of these big fish are going to end up. So we'll be right back with segment 2. Welcome back to segment 2. I mentioned we're going to split this up into 2 different segments. So we're going to start in the NBA, where there's been some disappointing news if you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan. The video posted late last week or this weekend of Ja Morant twirling a gun in the club, just the latest in a line of misbehavior from the young star from Memphis. Other incidents include him reporting beating up a 17-year-old this past summer in a pickup game in his house, him threatening a mall cop who had an issue with his mother, the Pacers game, where it was reported that some of the Pacers players were leaving the game and Ja's entourage was pointing a red laser at them, which was presumed to be a gun. All kind of pushed to the side until this most recent video. But there are definitely some concerns. Do you guys think this is something that can be fixed? How much string do we give Ja Morant? Where's your head at in regards to what you saw this past week and Ja as a whole?
I think it's definitely something that can be fixed. I mean, let's not get it twisted, or let's not get it wrong. We're talking about a 23-year-old kid. He's a kid, right? He's been thrust into this spotlight like never before, where now he's taken his team to the Western Conference Finals, and let's be honest, he's kind of been anointed as like the next American great basketball player, because we have a lot of great basketball players in the league right now, but some of the American guys are getting older. And some of the next generational talent are European. They're not from North America. The Lukas, the Jokic's, etc. So I feel like he's being crowned as that guy, and that's a heavy crown to wear. So at the age of 23, being a kid, you're going to make mistakes, and I am not absolving him from these mistakes. These are major mistakes to make. There's no there's no excuse for flashing a gun at a teenager. There's no excuse for flashing a gun while you're taking a live video on Instagram for your hundreds of millions of followers to see. You know what you're doing. You're just ignorant and dumb. So I think what is happening right now in response to this, as far as the suspension and as far as him deactivating his socials and everything, these are the correct steps to take at first. But the league and the Memphis Grizzlies better keep a thumb on him, better keep him close to the chest, because they got to protect him from him at this point.
I agree. It definitely, to answer your question, Seltzer, it can be fixed. He's very young still, and I think that there's guys like Carmelo Anthony, who's been through a lot in this league, that are OGs that can help him out. Guys like Allen Iverson that have been through things in this league that are OGs that can help him out. And I think they will. But Al, you said about the league and the Grizzlies keeping a close eye on him. When you flash a gun on social media, and in these other instances where he's allegedly flashed a gun, you're calling for the kind of smoke that you don't want. Because there's a lot of folks out there that don't just flash their guns. They're not afraid to use their guns. And if he's hanging out with the wrong crowd and goes to the wrong places and has this thug mentality all of a sudden, whether it's inspired by drugs or alcohol or whatever the situation is right now with him, it's obviously extremely dangerous. And for me, honestly, as a black man and a young black kid like him, young black man like him, we got to do better. He shouldn't. He has to understand he's a role model, not just for black kids, but for all kids. And as sweet and as chill and as cool as he's shown himself to be with kids in different arenas, his own other road arenas as well, he has to know that, like, this is, you can't do that, not just for your brand, but also just for the fact that, like, I think it was Powerade that just gave him a deal, and they haven't done a lot specifically with NBA players as far as endorsing them directly in a long time. And they just shot one with him and his father literally like a week ago. And I don't know if it'll stay on, if it's already been aired. I haven't seen it. I just heard about it. I don't know if it ever did air or if it was supposed to air this week, but I know they just shot it recently. And obviously right now they can't air that. If they did air it, they can't air it right now, for at least tentatively. So those are the kind of things that you're messing with your money, you're messing with your livelihood, you're messing with your life when you go down this road. And I feel like the NBA is just like the NFL, and I'm sure Major League Baseball is the same as well. They got dudes everywhere. You can't hide when you're in these leagues. The NFL has retired detectives, FBI guys, NBA, same thing. So they know everything. They know stuff that we don't, like, we'll never know. And my point in saying that is, you don't want to be in a league, if you're Ja, where any little thing is going to be under a microscope. And it could be innocent and harmless and stupid, but because of what you've done in the past, it's going to be looked at. And so for that reason, as well as all the other ones, I'll be honest. I mean, you can talk about a hot take if you want, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ja doesn't play the rest of the season. I don't know where this 2-game thing came from. This is getting investigated by police in different areas.
There's a rumor now that if the NBA finds out that gun was transported on the team plane, it's an automatic 50-game suspension from.
I was about to say, because I know Gilbert Arenas got that when he had a gun in the locker room that time,
right,
way back, whatever year that was.
Now, I don't know how you can prove that if Ja just says it wasn't my gun, it was my buddy's gun.
But also the Colorado, I think it was coming from Colorado, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were in Denver.
The Colorado police are investigating it now as well, and there's all kind of state rules and laws that they have regarding handguns and things like that. So this, when they said that 2-game thing, I knew off the bat that was going to be bogus. And if he is truly on drugs and alcohol, to be in rehabilitation centers and have it be worth a damn, you got to stay at least 30 days. So if they're serious about his health long term and about him as a human being, basketball becomes second. Not only for his health as a person, but also as, I mean, let's be real, it's a business, as an asset. You got to protect that, and you need to make sure he is 100% healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally, and 100% out, away from trouble as much as you can. If it takes him to miss the rest of this year, he's only 23. He's got plenty of years left, God willing, but that may be something that might be a pill they got to swallow.
Here's why I have some doubts. And again, I do think the age is a huge factor. He obviously is extremely young. But how many times have we in our daily lives, again, not to that serious measure, had a friend or had a coworker who you found out did something stupid, and you say to yourself, yeah, I could have seen that happening. I know that guy well enough to know he could do something like that. This type of behavior, the Memphis Grizzlies knew that this dude was up to this type of stuff well before this latest line of incidents. So if you don't think that they've been in his ear with veterans and older folks and people who have basically come to him and said what Al said, Ja, you could be the face of the NBA. You don't need this stuff.
And he doesn't.
You can
Right.
make millions and millions of dollars and be one of the most loved players in the NBA. And that still hasn't gotten through. 23 is young. Let me tell you something. There's a boatload of 23-year-olds in the NBA who ain't doing that stuff.
And to your point, Steven Adams had the closed door players only meeting, it's reported. And that was the day of, if I'm
It was that day. It was that
day
day
of the incident. And that night we saw what we saw. So
for those
it
of you guys
obviously went on deaf ears.
For those of you guys who did not read the Steven Adams report, so you guys know Steven Adams is the veteran on the Memphis Grizzlies. Basically had a closed door meeting for the Memphis. They are 12-20 on the road this year as an NBA team, and basically said our behavior and the way we act on the road is a direct reflection of that record, and we're not doing our job. And basically the report also said that everybody on the Memphis Grizzlies knew who he was talking about in that meeting, and it was Ja Morant, not
Steven
behaving
Adams,
on the road.
the oldest 29-year-old of all time. Steven
Yep,
Adams. But,
no doubt.
it's a famous quote. Fame is a hell of a drug. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with Ja. I mean, Adam, you said that you can have all these people, and he knows it. He knows that he's one of the faces of the league at this point. But at the end of the day, sometimes as a kid, and I'm going to keep calling him a kid because that's what he is. I was 23. You guys are 23.
Yeah, when you get older, that's what
23.
Right.
You do it regardless of what you have on the line elsewhere. And I just think that he's going to make these mistakes because you know what, he in his mind right now, where he's at in his life, he has something to prove to someone, to something, maybe to himself. And that's something to prove for whatever reason is tied up in this culture of showing firearms and being a tough guy and running with a crew and whatever it is. I mean, I just look, I hope they get him the help because he's in this day and age in the NBA, he's just another cog in the wheel, man. The league ain't gonna miss him. And
well,
maybe
I don't know about that, but they definitely would keep. They would move on, but I don't know if they wouldn't miss him, but it still would be it wouldn't be ideal to not have him.
Chris, there's a dozen dudes ready to be the next Ja Morant, just like Ja Morant's ready to be the next Steph Curry or whatever it is you want to call him.
Let me ask you guys this. I send you guys a lot of questions I'm going to ask you guys before the text, but I didn't send you this one because I wanted to get your reaction. Let's say Ja comes back for the playoffs. Memphis loses in the second round. And then come mid-June, there's another incident. Okay.
And what you're going to say.
Okay. Well, let me play it out. Mid-June, there's another incident. There's a gun. And let's say the Sixers flame out in the second round of the playoffs. Joel Embiid asked out. Would you take on Ja Morant if Joel Embiid said he wanted to be traded, and Memphis was calling you, asking you to take Ja Morant after another incident? You taking that risk?
Me personally, no, because I'm at that point, like being 37, and Al, you talk about Ja being 23 and being anybody being under our age at this point now is we consider them kids. I don't want to root for teams that got a bunch of dopes on them. Like, I think he's a great player. Now, if he got his life together and everything was different, that's one thing. But if it continues how it's going and it feels like everything fell on deaf ears, I'm out on that. I'm out on that.
Al?
I'm so in.
I knew he was going to say that.
I'm so in, dude. Sign me up. The only thing that it just would have to work out as far as the rosters go. Like, I don't want, a team full of undersized guards all of a sudden. But yeah, I'm so in because regardless, I mean, I know that we're, this is a fictitious world that we're living in right here with this trade scenario, but I'm all in on a 23, 24-year-old Ja Morant versus how old is Embiid? 28?
28.
28-year-old Joel Embiid, who seems to at the end of every season, he's run down, he's beat up, he can't make it through playoff games. We kind of know what we're getting from him. Yeah, dude.
Let me twist it for you. Let me twist it for you. And I'll just ask you this because it's just you. As a dad, do you want your 6-year-old son to be watching Ja Morant, knowing all that? Like, is it okay for him to be a fan of Ja Morant if all that stuff's still going on?
As a dad, if my 6-year-old son is watching Ja Morant and imitating things that Ja Morant is doing and thinking those are the right things to do because Ja Morant's doing them, then I'm not doing my goddamn job as a dad.
All right.
There you go.
That's fair.
So
for you.
that's what that boils down
That's
to.
a dad ass answer too.
Yeah, that was real
Dude, hell
bad.
yeah, man. I ain't playing games when it comes to that.
But we're splitting this segment in two tonight, so we're gonna have to wrap it up. Any closing thoughts on Ja before we jump into the NFL QB carousel?
I was going to say one thing real quick about the last question you asked to Al directly because he said he would be in. If it was something where he had issues with players or coaches or something like that, and he developed a reputation of being a hothead in the locker room, that's one thing. But the trade ain't going to look good if the guy goes out and gets locked up or killed in a year after you got him because he's living the life that he really ain't about, and he got caught up. And that's what I would fear if he didn't get put in the right hands to help him. Is he's leading down that path?
Yeah.
So that's what I fear. In addition to what you said as far as being the role model situation, Seltzer. I think I'll be honest, it's kind of a double standard, at least for me. If this was the NFL, we're talking about the Eagles. I'd have more leeway with people who have backgrounds being in a football team versus basketball, probably because in the simplest way I could explain it, there's less guys on a basketball team. So, and also with football, it's a different dynamic as far as where your head has to be at while you're playing, and like the ferocity of the sport and things like that. And I think that makes a little bit of a difference. But as far as like off the field, off the court, it's still the same thing, technically. But I just hope he gets it right because, like I said, some of these guys got to leave that life behind. And he, from what I understand, wasn't even really about that until he got later on and got in the league and got a lot of yes men around him and a lot of people that he wanted to roll with in his crew and this and that. I mean, he came up, from what I understand, and not nearly a rough street background as a lot of other guys have. Yet he's doing what he's doing. So it ain't cool. Like you play basketball and things like that to get out the hood. You don't bring the hood with you.
I just want to close real quick because Chris, he from what everybody know, he grew up with a good life.
Right.
He grew up with a good life. I think it's just for the first time in his life, he has the money, he has the power, he has the ability to be whatever he wants to be. And I think that he's never been able to be this guy that's a tough guy. And I think that he's just playing a role right now. I think he is going to turn it around. And I think it's going to be just everybody loves a redemption story. And I think in a year or two, we're going to be talking about, remember all that goofy shit that Ja was doing? That one year, like, what was that about? And that's what it's going to be.
I hope you're right. And there has been apparently a little bit of a schism in the locker room as a result of that meeting and what played out afterwards. So I would venture a wild guess that a guy like Dylan Brooks is probably on Team Ja after this.
You think?
And not on the proper appropriate leadership side. I could be wrong though, but the perception is reality, and that's the perception that they've given off to the public. So that's
and
with that.
And again, I don't want to extend this any further, but it's crazy that team at the end of last year has so much potential to be one of the most popular teams in the NBA, and they chose to take it the complete opposite direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's based on that. And again, that's based on that leadership.
Imagine being Coach Jenkins in that
Tough spot.
He's oh boy,
tough spot. Let's transition to NFL, where we've seen some of the beginnings of free agency is not officially open, but we've seen some of the QB carousel beginning, specifically in the NFC East. Daniel Jones re-signs a few hours ago, 4 years, $160 million, $40 million a year for Daniel Jones.
Love it.
94 guaranteed.
Time to get the bag.
Geno Smith earlier today, 3 years, 105 million, so 35 million a year for
Good for
Geno.
Geno.
Good
Good
for
for
him.
him.
Yep.
And the one changing teams, Derek Carr signs with New Orleans yesterday, 4 years, 150 million, so 37.5 million per year for Derek Carr. I did, before those other guys signed, I had some notes. That Derek Carr contract puts him in between Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins, which is probably a realistic spot for Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm still just so happy for. I know we're not talking about Geno, but that deal was like, imagine being Geno. Like we said, now a year ago, Geno Smith would come out of this season and have 105 million over 3 years.
105 million for 3 years.
Yeah, I would have cried like a baby if I was Geno when I got that call.
Good for
For
him,
all
man.
the ups and downs he's had to go through.
Yeah.
But anyway, Derek Carr to me is, does that really make the Saints better? I don't know.
It makes him better.
It's
Doesn't
better,
lose him.
but
Well, but damn if you do, damn if you don't, because now you got him, but you're probably going to lose Kamara. Because
Well,
Kamara's got off the field stuff that he may have to be suspended or whatever's going to happen with that.
and he just puts them in the position that Minnesota's been stuck in all these years with a guy that's not good enough to win it, but not bad enough to let go.
Right. And realistically, in that division where nobody has a quarterback, they're good enough to win a division title, which probably means something to them.
Dude, division that nobody has a quarterback. I think we're going to talk about it, right? This conference doesn't have any quarterbacks.
Yeah. So
There's one guy, and we got him. Thank God, man.
where do you have Derek Carr in the NFC quarterbacks? Let's assume Rodgers is in. Let's assume everybody is where they are at the moment. Derek Carr, the third best quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah.
I have him. Let's see, one. I'm currently fourth.
He's
You
in
have
that.
Dak
He's in that
above him?
third tier.
Yeah, you want me to tell you, Seltzer?
I assume it's Dak, Hurts, and Rodgers.
Yeah.
But
Not in that order, but that's the three. I have.
Right. Absolutely.
But it's clearly like Hurts is in a league of his own right now. Then you have, in my opinion, Rodgers because he's like the wild card where I'm still not ready to totally give up on him and say that he can't put something together. I still think his ceiling is higher than Prescott's ceiling. So for me, I have Rodgers second, and then I have a tier underneath where it's like the Daks, the Goffs, and now the Cars, where it's a bunch
and
of
Cousins.
guys.
Kirk's
And Cousins too, where all those guys can finish in any whatever order, but they're all still losers.
I think we're all on the same page.
Rodgers is he's here now, but that's subject to change. He's on borrowed time, I think, being in the NFC. So ultimately, Derek will
NFC
probably move up to the third spot in the NFC, I guess. But
you got him going to the Apollo Roughnecks of the NFL or XFL.
Dude, real quick, the XFL is legit, bro. You've been watching, like they got people at these games.
I've not watched a second of XFL.
They got people. The DC game was like sold out, and that was in week 3. It wasn't even like week 1. They got some weird thing going on in that stadium where they were throwing lemons. Did you hear about this? They threw lemons on the field. There was something that happened with it, and they I don't know if it was a protest or what, but when they scored, they threw lemons, and the game had to stop because there were so many lemons on the field.
It's like remember the Red Wings used to throw the octopus.
Wait, it wasn't because they signed quarterback Cleo Lemon to the roster, or he threw a touchdown pass.
No. They had something with the beer cups. So they were doing like snake cups all the way from the top of the rafters down to the field. It was nuts. So like it's a lot of stuff going on. But Seltzer, to your point before with the rule changes, they got the onside kick thing right with the as far as doing the 15-yard play or whatever it is.
You're welcome, XFL.
So, but it looks like there might be a little bit of sticking power this time, at least for a couple years. USFL still had nobody at games, and they only went to one stadium. This is traveling, and they're getting a good amount of people for the different games. So who knows?
You just really gotta love football to want to watch the XFL, though, man.
Oh, that's me, man.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
But they got a lot of NFL guys that are in it.
We didn't talk about the biggest quarterback news of the day. The Baltimore Ravens place, I think it's called the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, which basically very similar to, I guess, restricted free agency in the NBA, where he can still negotiate with other teams. They would just owe the Baltimore Ravens 2 first-round picks, and Baltimore would obviously have a chance to match the contract and keep him there. But by all accounts, it seems that he is done in Baltimore. Not going to show Al. Maybe you clipped when I said before that wild card game. You asked me if Lamar Jackson was going to play. I said he's not playing, and he's not going to play another snap for the Baltimore Ravens. We could clip that on Instagram.
I don't know if he's done with the Ravens.
So if you had to put you think, if I had to ask you now, is he playing for Baltimore week 1 next year?
If you had right now, yeah, I would say I would say yes, only because they've built their franchise literally around it.
Then why won't they pay him? They don't want to pay him.
I know.
They don't want him, and he doesn't want to be there either.
Well, then they could have just let him walk. But they're
going to try and get something for him.
So I got a couple teams that I think might pay that price.
So I have a couple as well, but there's a boatload have already come out and said they're not interested. So I'm curious if those.
I haven't heard who was that.
There was a bunch. Atlanta, who I had as my favorite.
That's actually why
I had them as my
revealed fans.
Atlanta, Washington, Carolina, Miami, and somebody else.
Oh, my team is still alive.
I had Atlanta, Vegas, and Washington.
Vegas was another one that was not on them.
Oh, well, okay. I had Vegas, so there goes that.
You think that's just kind of smoke screens? You think it's legit?
Know.
Why would you come out and say like, "Nah, we good"? Like, what? Why would you? I mean, even for gamesmanship, why would you say that?
I don't know. Maybe they're not interested. They don't want to even have that thing.
Teams are stupid.
So listen, I went out there a little bit on this, and this is where I want to start the conversation. So when all those teams, I originally had Atlanta. I thought it was a great fit in Atlanta.
Perfect fit.
But I think I may have a better fit. And it's a team that had a quarterback last year, but again, probably a middle of the road guy who's not going to take them any further than they need to go. Guest squad. What if the Detroit Lions were interested in Lamar Jackson?
Whoa.
Detroit Lions have 2 first-round picks this year.
Guess what? I looked this morning. I saw the Lions are the 4th highest odds to win the NFC right now, plus 1,100. And that's without Lamar Jackson.
NFC is butt.
Dude, Detroit, I told you, though, Detroit's coming.
You like that? Coming. You like Lamar Jackson in Detroit? Like, they can pull a plug on Jared Goff.
Oh, my gosh, dude. Huh? Lamar in Detroit will be nuts. They got weapons. I'm still trying to figure out, though, why they traded Hawkinson to the Vikings in your division. Like, why I didn't understand that then. I really don't get it now because they're decent and they could use them.
Yeah, I don't remember what his contract was, if all that. I don't remember what they got in the trade, but maybe they weren't in love with him. So
to the division, like a rival like that, like that's.
I don't know. Is Hawkinson that guy? You worry about trading him in a division? He is what he is. I don't want to turn this into a Lions preview. You guys like Lamar Jackson in Detroit?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, he's an upgrade.
All right. So
yeah, but then what does that mean for Goff?
I have Goff going to Atlanta, but I just kind of threw him somewhere.
You think they're going to do that whole thing again with a mediocre, like they had Mariota last year, then they're going to have Goff next year?
What are their other options?
Yeah, beggars can't be choosers. They stink.
Well, they got the draft. They got
Ritter. They stink. That's your squad, Falcons, Al.
God, you make one friggin' comment about a team being possibly underrated, buying low on them. Who the hell did you want me to buy low on?
Al got the Seahawks, the Falcons.
God.
Maxey just iced the Sixers game. They're up 24 now with 9 minutes left.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption there, but I got a little excited.
I don't know if you guys looked at the money situation, if the money situation makes sense for these quarterbacks and where they're going. Like I didn't
get that far into it.
No, okay. For Atlanta,
Atlanta had the room for Lamar for sure.
Oh yeah.
What's up with Rodgers? Where do you guys have Rodgers going?
I have him staying. I think this is all much to do about nothing again. I don't think he's going anywhere.
I'll tell you what I did though. I looked up that spot he went to. That dark hut thing that he went.
That's so strange.
Yeah, that place looks kind of dope.
Dude, it's so dark. I watched that video. It's so dark. People were walking into shit.
Yeah, but so you don't. He chose to have it like that, but it's like cave-esque, but like you don't have to have it where it's like in the dark and this and that. Like they have where you can be on your own. You could be with a family and do it. The whole thing. You still have a bathroom. It's not like you're taking a dump in the woods somewhere like a monk. But it's interesting. But
I want to do one of those sensory deprivation chambers. They got one in Manayunk, I believe, where like you lay in a saltwater tub and it's
Oh,
totally
like the Nirvana.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no sound, no nothing, and you just float in it, and it's supposed to like clear your mind or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they got one down the street at the Collegeville Town Center. It's called Nirvana something or other.
You got a lot going on there, Al, huh?
I think that would be interesting. Look, I'm worried about my kid, watching Ja Morant and whatnot. So
You're like, hey, yo, I got to go to the saltwater joint. I got to free my mind.
need a cleansing.
Yes, you got Rodgers. You got Rodgers staying or going?
I got him going to the Jets.
I do too.
I've had that even since this past season. I thought that was a good fit for him. It's in the bright market in New York City, which is obviously way different than Green Bay, but I guess he still keeps the green color. But yeah, I think he would fit well there. I think they become a legit contender if he goes there, actually.
I think so too. As good as they were defensively last
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
That's all they're missing is a quarterback.
Yeah.
Not all they're missing, but it's the biggest piece.
And
I mean,
so
he's
who
got
do
a
you have-
similar in the sense of like how we talk about Harden, like what does he have left as far as like how many years? Right now, he's showing that he can play this year. I think Rodgers in a very similar situation. If he goes somewhere else, I think he still has a year, maybe two, where he could be at a top flight level with the right team.
My only reason I think that the Jets thing could fall through is Rodgers is a really proud guy, and his career would look so much like Brett Favre, and I don't think he wants it to look like Brett Favre if he goes Green Bay to New York.
That's true, and that's where Brett Favre went too. So
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, New York and
Yeah.
then Minnesota.
In Minnesota.
What Jimmy Garoppolo was the other name that we have out there that's still hanging out there. Where'd you guys have Jimmy ended up?
I threw him on Miami.
Ooh,
As an insurance policy.
I threw him on Miami. Yeah.
I actually
Yeah.
don't mind that. I had him in Vegas.
I have him at well. First off, I have him in the Jets if Rodgers doesn't go there. Assuming Rodgers goes to the Jets, I said Vegas or Indianapolis.
Okay. I think Indy's going to draft somebody.
I mean, they should, but
Because it looks like there's going to be 4 quarterbacks in the top 10 right now. With what's the kid from Florida's name? Randolph?
Anthony
Richardson, thank you. Thinking of Anthony Randolph from the LSU basketball.
former Sixer great Shavlik Randolph.
Shavlik Randolph. You beat me to it.
So that's kind of the QB carousel. So if Rodgers leaves Green Bay, you think they run with Love?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's the guy. Right?
I think
Yeah.
they have to as well.
Well, wait. I think that the Jets are going to jet it up, and I think I have Carson Wentz going to the Jets.
It'd be awesome.
I can't imagine
That'd be
Carson Wentz is
hilarious.
getting
How funny would that be?
Carson Wentz is getting another starting gig. I can't imagine.
No, I think that ship sailed. I think something you had mentioned where you thought he was going to go. I agree with you.
I have Green Bay. We talked about it last week, and I think he backs up Love.
And that was actually, I believe I heard him before say that was his team before he became a professional. When growing up in North Dakota, I think he said he was a Packer fan. If not, I can't remember if it was Packers or Vikings, but that's his home country out there, that North Midwest area. So I could definitely see that. But I wanted to bring one name up that we're not talking about that's kind of mixed up in this.
Yep.
Zach Wilson. Where does Zach Wilson, does he get demoted straight up or does he get traded, in your opinion? He's only been, 2 years removed from being a top, what was he, 3 in the draft, 2 in the draft?
Who the hell wants him?
I think his value is so low that he's a backup, and at worst case scenario, I don't think like his value changes if they trade him next year.
But because of that, here's my hot take segment for this week, or for this segment. Because I agree with you, because of that, I would not be surprised to see Howie trade for Zach Wilson and have him be Jalen Hurts backup. Remember, we're a quarterback factory. Remember that. That was a direct quote. The connection with Howie and Joe Douglas, if they can get him for anything less than a fourth, I would not be surprised to see them trade for Zach Wilson.
That'll shut the factory down. The doors will be closed. The factory will be changing the nickname.
Closing up shop, folks.
That's it.
All right.
And I don't. It'd be easy for me to say, like, I think that'd be stupid, but I know we need a guy behind Hurts that has mobility, that can run the offense. Obviously not going to run it as good as he does, but someone that can run it in the sense of being a multi-level threat. And Zach can do that, but also guys like Jacoby Brissett can do that. Brissett's a winner. He's a guy, like, I think that's something that, what do you mean?
I'm just not a Brissett guy. We had this conversation in the previews last year. He's okay.
Bro, Brissett wins games when you got to win games. Like, you're not going to build your team around him, but if you need him to play 4 or 5 games, he can go 4-1 for you.
I'm not going to argue with you about Jacoby Brissett. Our listeners don't want to hear the Jacoby Brissett.
What do you got? Jesus in your basement, bro? You looking like you got a ghost or something in that room you're at. You looking up like you're following something.
Well, the Sixers are on the TV.
I was like, what are you looking at?
So look, we're going to have a lot more free agency with NFL coming up, and we'll see if some of these predictions come true. I know Al wanted 3 minutes on the Players Championship. I saw your tweet. Everybody knew you're picking Jason Day. Let's just get it over with. It was the most obvious pick there ever was.
I don't know how to get away from the guy. Like betting on golf can be hard because you fall in love with guys and then you don't want to not bet them in the chance that they win. So you end up betting the same guys for that reason. I mean, I'm not betting schmucks, I'm not betting dramokes, but like, dude, Jason Day, if you're a follower on the Instagram account and you saw the story this week, yesterday, I should say, or today, you saw Jason Day is the only golfer in the field with 4 top 10s in his last 4 starts. So he's on a tear. And he's been through hell and back, literally, with physically and with his family, with popping out 4 kids. His wife is pregnant with a 5th. Like, it looks like the dude is finally right again as far as golf shape.
He don't miss in one area, evidently.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins it again. The odds for the players are all screwed up. The top like 20 guys are all 30-1 or less. It's tough to bet. So I have Jason Day. Did you guys have any thoughts about the players?
Is Tiger in it?
Tiger's not in.
Not playing.
All right, well, I'm out.
Love the golf course. Fantastic tournament. Al, you're gonna get mad. My favorite pick, my favorite that I'm gonna pick, I think Rory is primed to win it again. But if you need me to take, I don't know if this name's a dark horse, but it's in the same Jason Day range. Hatton, I think, is playing.
I liked him last week.
Yeah, he played really well. And
you said Hatton?
What'd you say?
You said
Tyrell Hatton.
Tyrell Hatton. Yeah. That's the blackest white dude name of all time.
He's hilarious. I know
he's from England, I think, but like, if you don't know about golf and you're like Tyrell, well, at least it looks like for us it says Tyrell Hatton, and then he rolls up.
Yeah, he is. He's funny, but listen, great golf tournament, and the best part is, they say that compared to other weeks, anybody can win this week. The course does not favor any particular type of player. And you'll see a lot of balls in the water, especially on 17. So just in if you're a golf fan.
Big week for long shots.
Is Spieth in it?
Yeah, most of the big names, almost all the big names are in it. Spieth is also playing good golf. He just can't putt.
I'm getting an intuitive vibe that Spieth is going to win. And I'm not a Spieth fan, but
I don't hate that.
He doesn't really play well there. I have a long shot guy. Keith Mitchell, I think, is up around 200-1. I don't mind him as a long shot.
He's a Florida guy.
Yeah. Golf is like impossible. What are you even wasting money on it for?
Hard, man.
It's so hard.
Look, but if you hit a 50-1, you only have to hit one a year.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
But
wait, real quick, 17th hole, overrated or underrated? One word.
It's perfectly rated.
That's 2.
Cheating.
No, it's not. It's a great hole.
You said one word. You gave him 2 words.
It's
like hyphenated, perfectly rated.
It's not underrated. It gets so much hype it can't be underrated, but it's fantastic.
All right. Well, great tournament.
I know you think it's overrated.
No, I think it's underrated. I love it. Yeah. I don't think it can be rated well enough.
All right. So, Chris, you're a big movie guy. You have a movie website, believe it or not. You haven't plugged it in 35 episodes.
Realmoviesmatter.com, but I've been really busy with the podcast and also with school stuff, so it hasn't really been updated as often, but that's where it's at.
This is not a joke. Is it real REEL or real REL?
I'm glad you said that. It's real like the movie Real, REEL.
Okay.
REEL, yep.
I say that because it's Oscars week, and in segment 3, we are going to discuss our favorite sports movies. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to segment 3, where we're going to talk sports, movies, and classics. Again, Chris is the big movie guy out of the three of us, I would say. So, Al, do you think Chris should go first? Want to go Chris first?
Yeah, let's roast his list. And
All right, so we each made a list of the top 5, and then we'll spew off of that. We're going to go 5 through 1. So this is your number 5 movie, Chris. What do you got?
And so, of course, also this is just based on specifically being subjective and what we like, not based on accolades or anything like that.
Yeah, so don't get into the sabermetrics with us here.
Right. We don't have any VORP for the movies.
Yeah.
Number 5, I have, and this was a tough one between 5 and 6, but number 5, I have the movie that was Best Picture in, I believe it was 1975 or 76, and that would be Rocky. Nothing more Philly than Rocky. So I think it's like a rite of passage that we have to have this. And based on your looks, I don't know if we got a consensus of that being in the top 5, which is a damn shame if we don't. But we'll talk about it.
I think the whole series is overrated. Why don't we just talk about each movie as they come up? So it's not a mess at the end.
How is okay?
I think they're okay.
Bookmark that, please. Bookmark that.
I think that. Listen, I think they're okay.
We'll go back
like
to
them, but I just think they're overrated by the majority of people. So you have to like have a statue at the art museum. It's a little excessive.
Oh well, no, that ain't. I mean, that ain't do that. That's.
But it shows how well it's thought of.
Well, that's the Philadelphia aspect of it. You could say that the city has overrated the movie, but the movie itself is not overrated.
Rocky 1 is great, but some of its greatness is diluted because of its subsequent movies. Rocky 4 being obviously the main argument, because a lot of people think 4 is better than 1.
Well, they're morons. Whoever thinks that.
So for the record, I thought we were doing a draft, so I ranked the top. I had 16 names. I had Rocky 4 at 15, and that was the first Rocky movie I had in the franchise list.
So color me a moron, Chris, because I also have Rocky 4.
Listen, I'll be honest.
I thought this was all subjective. You can't criticize me.
I'll be honest. Movies is probably the only thing in life that I'm bougie in. I will tell somebody they're a moron blatantly about a movie. If you come at me and you're like, my favorite movie is Dumb and Dumber, you're an idiot.
Rocky 1 is a romance movie. It's a chick movie.
Yeah, it's not even sports.
All right. So number 4 is number the chick.
Chris just curls up with a blanket.
I'm trying to save my voice. Number 4 is has one of my all-time favorite movie scenes of all time in it. The Game of Inches speech at the end with Al Pacino, Willie Beeman. Well, not Willie Beeman, but Jamie Foxx. Who else is in that? Lawrence Taylor, Cameron Diaz, Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
We're talking about Any Given Sunday. Any Given Sunday is number 4 for me. Anytime it's on TV, it's a click and stick for me.
Dennis
I keep it on.
Yeah. Al, thoughts? You in on Any Given Sunday?
I also have it as my number 4.
Okay. I have it way down. I enjoy it. Again, I love sports movies. I had it at 14, but I really enjoy the movie. And I probably have it too low.
And I think it's the most realistic depiction of the NFL from the inside, a view of it from the inside out.
From that era, from the Juice era too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I could literally give you verbatim the Game of Inches speech. That's how many, that's how much I love that scene and how many times I've seen that part.
Without that speech,
it's still a great movie.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still a great movie.
And
you got Willie Beeman being the backup quarterback coming in and taking Cap's job, who was the franchise guy and got
the backup, third string.
Right. That's a great point. People don't talk about that.
Yeah.
He was actually a third string.
Yeah.
The guy, the second string dude, got whacked like 2 plays.
2 plays, yeah.
Threw him over to the water bottle table and whatnot.
I don't want to interrupt you, but Korkmaz has 5 points in 1 minute so far since he's coming to the game.
He's cooking. He's had a lot of time to stir. So
very efficient.
Yeah. Number 3. Number 3 is
wait. Any Given Sunday, though, the biggest problem I have with that movie is the damn uniforms. Oh my God, are they atrocious?
What? Oh, I love the
No,
dude.
who's the one team they play? The Knights or
Oh,
something?
you
The
mean
yellow and the
in
red?
general, the other
Yeah,
one.
yeah, the
Oh,
other
yeah.
teams. Oh my God, dude.
Also notable, Bill Bellamy's in there.
Yeah.
T.O. is in there. Ricky
Did you say
Waters,
LT?
Yeah, he
LT.
said LT.
Did LT? Okay.
Yeah. I think Y.A. Tittle's one of the coaches for one of the other squad. Like it's so many people in that movie.
Yeah.
Um,
Great movie.
what was number 3? Another one, every time it's on, I watch it, never gets old. You might run like Maze, but you hit like shit.
Yeah.
Major League. Love that movie.
I have it. I have it at number 3 as well.
Yeah, I can't get enough of that. I watch it literally every opening day to get me going for the season. And anytime in between when it's on TV, I always watch it because it's awesome.
Dude,
Has some of the greatest characters.
that's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I have the list. I have Wild Thing, Willie Mays Hayes, Jake Taylor, Roger Dorn, Serrano, Bob Uecker, Harris, the starting pitcher is fantastic. Like they
You're
just
saying Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball.
I have that quote written down right here. I have that quote written down right here. One of the best quotes in the entire movie. It's just there's just so many fantastic characters in that movie.
Yeah, it's awesome. Fantastic.
I have a note, and I don't think you're gonna put it, I don't think Al will hear. The second Major League, not as good, but Jack Parkman, one of the best heels in sports movie history.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
You're standing on the tracks when the train's coming through.
And then if I remember correctly, he gets traded and they play him in the playoffs, right?
Yeah. Then he runs over the catcher in the big game, and that's what he says.
Yep. Even though when I see a bunt in a real game to this day, like first I think of Taylor bunts.
Yeah, you say that all the time.
So so Major League 3,
and the manager is fantastic. What's his name? The manager, Lou Brown. Thank you.
Yeah, rest in peace, Lou Brown. Yep.
Al doesn't have it on the list. Al might not have never seen it.
No, I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Oh, it's awesome, man.
Great movie.
Actually, the owner died too. The woman, the female, she died a couple of years ago. Number 2, I have, not just for football perspective, but just in general for the message is Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans is an awesome movie. Denzel, like, come on, like it's fantastic.
I have that. I Remember the Titans at number 1.
And and Sarah has it at number 1 too. That's her favorite movie, period.
Wood Harris, man, Denzel, fantastic. Ryan Gosling cameo.
Total liability.
Yeah.
When awesome.
Wait, and how can we, Seltzer? You got to unplug Nickel just to fit.
I wanted to say that for you because I know you unblocked for plug Nickel.
You have not. Why don't you go tell your boy Petey because he has not been blocking for Rev or plug Nickel, and you know it.
Also, a young Hayden Panettiere in that movie.
Yeah.
Before she was,
dude, when in the last game when the coach he's like, I don't want them to gain another yard.
Yeah,
you blitz all night. Like that sends chills. That sends chills down your spine. And then Bakir crashes the car, and it becomes tragic.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack. I haven't even talked about the soundtrack.
Unbelievable soundtrack.
Fantastic.
Top 5 of all time.
Yeah. The message is awesome. The movie's awesome. Great pick. And then number 1 is actually in my top 10 overall. Not one that's necessarily a popular choice for being that high, but for me it is for a lot of reasons. Friday Night Lights.
Oh yeah,
I love Friday Night Lights.
It's a great movie.
I've never watched the show, but the movie, and especially now with obviously, not now being more, as a teacher and in the schools and coaching myself, not in high school level, but still like with the youth, it even rings more true because you get to see from like the perspective of like the coaches and stuff. Like for instance, the end of the movie when Gaines takes all the nameplates off, and puts the new ones up, dude, I get like that gives me chills every time because that's real. Like you have a great team, and then you get a handful of games with them because in the pros it's different, obviously. But when you're talking about high school and college and even middle school, whatever you're coaching, like you get a year, maybe 2, and then you got to flip the script and have a whole new group and hope that they can be as good as the last one. So, but that movie to me is just a great time. Also
It's so
great
real.
message, huh?
It's so real. It's
That's
so
what I'm saying. It's a
so
great,
realistic, man. Like
very
it's
realistic. Especially
I had it
and also going with the book. The book by Buzz Bissinger is one of the best books that I've read.
oh, I didn't
I
read it.
love,
Never
yeah, I
read it.
love that book. The book is awesome. It was the number one best New York Times bestseller, the whole thing. And the books, you could, as good as the movie is, the book might actually be even better. We say it all the time about stuff, but the book goes in even more detail about the characters that we know from the film. They're not really characters because they were real people. It's a true story, but that also adds to it the true element of, you know, this is really what happened to these kids in this situation in Permian High School. Notable graduate of Permian High School, former wide receiver Roy Williams.
He was in the
Yeah.
movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was in the movie. What scene's he in the movie?
He's like
one of
the,
the he's like a
just
coach in the
assistant
background,
coach.
I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Got you. I had it at number 9. I really like the movie. I'm not a Billy Bob Thornton guy. Like I just
Oh, he was
can't-
awesome in that
He's
as
great
Coach
in
Gaines
it.
in that.
I just don't love him. And to me, the halftime speech is just average. It's nowhere near the Friday night or the Any Given Sunday speech. It's nowhere near the miracle speech.
So none of them are good as a Chris Guest speech. I'll tell you that much.
So I had it down a little bit. And Chris, I will tell you this: if you've never watched the show is way better than the movie.
I've heard that people like the show a lot. I've
Fantastic.
never. I feel weird watching it after loving the movie so much. I feel like I'm almost like cheating on the movie.
No. Listen, fantastic show. Must
Yeah, I
watch
might
it.
check it out. I might
Yeah.
binge it.
I highly recommend it if you haven't.
You didn't even talk about Booby Miles, man. Y'all
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Movie's fantastic
put
character.
Booby in. Let Booby spin.
dude, when he gets hurt and he's in the car with his uncle and he's like, "You didn't let me play football,"
Yeah.
like he's all messed up because he can't because he tore his. Now back in 1988, tearing your ACL was a wrap.
Yeah. That's it. And then the other scene that I love in that movie that you didn't talk about was when Tim McGraw comes home all drunk and he tapes the ball to his son's hands and he's trying to punch the ball out of it after he fumbles in the game.
And Billings, it was Billingsley. Was his son. And imagine like being him in that time and like you got a shorty at the crib.
Yeah.
And then Papa's sitting in the dark waiting for you. Like you're done. Like your life in that capacity is over.
Yep. That's a great movie. I had that I had like I have 4 movies that could be number 5 and I didn't pick that as my number 5, but that could have been 5. It probably could be over Any Given Sunday. Just to give insight on how I ranked mine. This is subjective. We picked our favorites. I tried to think of it as if these movies were on TV, because I still watch TV, not streaming TV. I still watch actual live TV.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Which one am I going to put on and leave on? Like, what's the hierarchy of that list? So I have that at like a 6 or a 7.
Okay.
Now, you only had one movie that on your list that Chris had?
Yes.
Okay, so let me go next because I had 2, so I only have 3 movies to go through. So I did mine the same way, and I don't have cinematic masterpieces. I have movies that entertain me. And this movie, I did not think I would have this high because plot-wise, it's horrible. But when I was looking through it today and I saw the quotes and I was reading through the number of quotes in this movie, I was dying laughing. And at number 5, I have The Little Giants.
Oh,
never mind.
Great.
When I was reading through when Rick Moranis is the king of playing the nerd on TV. Yeah. There's no man who was born with a better set of skills to play the nerd than Rick Moranis.
Was he in the movie after that?
I have no idea.
Was that before or after all the Honey and the Kids?
No, that's way after. Little Giants was way after those movies.
I know he retired at one point early because like his wife was sick or something like that, and I don't know if he's ever made anything after that.
When he shows the kids the jerseys, and he goes, "Look, they have your names on the back," and the kid goes, "So they guys can identify the bodies at the morgue."
And it's such a kid line.
Yeah. And when then Spike gets introduced to the team, he's like, "What do you like to run?" He's like, "Power Eye." Spike don't play with girls.
Oh, he's chest.
Yeah. Oh my God. The movie is just
You got to say the best quote of the movie that we used it for that stupid Dallas Cowboys play when Zeke was under center, when Zeke was playing center. when Ed O'Neill and the assistant coach are spying on the practice. They
Yeah.
got the guards in the backfield. The center's on the right, and the quarterback isn't even there. They're standing around, butts.
Butts.
I
Oh, the
think that might be
scene,
the first time you hear that his name is Butts.
the scene when early in the movie when Kevin O'Shea is like trying to teach him how to tackle in his house, and he's like charging at the wife, and she moves, and he flies out the window and lands on the tree. Oh,
That's a great move. That's in my cluster of that like 6 through 8.
yeah, and we didn't even say the other line when the kid putting the equipment on, he's like, I can't see with this thing on.
Dude, you love that cheesy 90s humor, man.
Dude, man, that movie has me dying. But I'll take it to number 4 with a little more serious movie. And we haven't talked about the GOAT actor of sports movies has to be Costner, right? He's been in a million.
Well, you mean as far as being in a lot of them?
Just he's in every single, like he's in at least 5 or 6 legitimate sports movies that could have been on this list. So I have at number 4 For the Love of the Game, which is probably his least important, least popular sports movie.
I love that movie.
I'd have it at number 1 if it wasn't for the actual love story. The love story itself is kind of beat, but the baseball scenes in that movie are as good as any baseball movie that there ever was. Vin Scully doing the play-by-play is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And so Kevin Costner's pitching this perfect game. It's his last start. He's pitching in Yankee Stadium. They couldn't have portrayed the Yankee fans any better in that movie. The guy in the airport, like they're booing him. They're like, Chappell, you're a bum. And at the end, he's like, respect. Like, such awesome. A good, and like just the lines and the realism of the baseball is as good as any movie. The one line I put here is obviously Kevin Costner's character is named Billy Chappell, and he throws the perfect game, and he goes, the cathedral that is Yankee Stadium belongs to a chapel, in that Vin Scully classic baseball voice.
And it's cool because you're like in the mind of the guy as he's pitching this gem of a game and like what he's thinking.
Right. And he's like, I have nothing left in the 9th inning, and he's just trying to gut it out.
Yeah, that's great.
And John C. Reilly cameo as the catcher.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I have number 3, I had Major League. Number 1, I had Remember the Titans, which we already talked about. Number 2, I have Moneyball. I really, really liked Moneyball. Chris, you mentioned Friday Night Lights, how much you like the book, and that added to the movie experience. Same thing with Moneyball for me. Really, really liked the book, and honestly thought it was not going to be a great movie because it was going to be a hard book to kind of put into a movie. It was more of like a explanation of economics in baseball. But Brad Hitt and Jonah Hill were tremendous. The one line I have from the movie is when they moved Scott Hatteberg to first base, and I think David Justice is talking to him in the locker room. He goes, what's your biggest fear? And Hatteberg goes, a ball hitting my general direction. I thought that was fantastic. And we were all around to see that A's team be really good. So I thought that movie
played by Chris Pratt, a young Chris Pratt, Scott Hatteberg.
Correct. That is correct.
That movie actually was number 6 for me. It just missed a cut for me. I love that movie too. It's also a Best Picture nominee. And that movie is full of chill scenes. Like there's so many scenes that just give you the chills when you watch it because how awesome. Like when he drives off and he doesn't watch the games, and then his daughter calls him and she's like, you want to turn around for this one? And he's like, nah. And then he hangs up and he's like, fuck it, I'll do it. And goes around and like always thinks he's gonna jinx it.
Right.
And then he gets there and he does jinx it, but they end up still getting it done anyway at the end after the Royals came back and almost had a historic comeback. But that movie is just so many chills that you get from watching that.
The trade deadline season is awesome for baseball nerds who are like, you don't know how realistic it is, but if that's how like the trade deadline's working, when he's negotiating to get Ricardo Racone and he's hanging up on the Giants GM and calling the Cleveland GM, trying to get an extra like $50,000 to move along, that scene's fantastic as well.
Yeah, I think to your point too, like if you don't watch or know a lot about baseball, or if you didn't really see that playing out in real time when it did in 2001, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean early 2000s, late 90s.
It's even better when you live through it because of how ridiculously like out of the blue that was when their A's were on that run, especially with that team that they had. And then when you see, when you read the book and watch the movie and you realize, you figure out how they put that team together and what it like the strategy they used. it's awesome. It's a really good movie.
The start of analytics in sports.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Very
So those are my
impactful.
5. So again, Little Giants at 5, For the Love of the Game at 4, Major League at 3, Moneyball at 2, and Remember the Titans at 1.
Al, do you have any of those on yours? Do you have
No,
Moneyball?
I'm blown away that you guys don't have my 1 on either of your lists. I can't wait to get to it. I am shocked.
Like I said,
I think I know what it is. I don't think there's 2 big time sports movies out there that I'm embarrassed to say I have not seen. So I have a feeling one of them is.
I don't think it is, because I don't have any of the quote unquote like classics. Like we talked about it before we hit record, and like the If You Build It, He Will Come. Like
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. Yeah, like I don't have those kinds of movies on my list. I have movies that, Chris, you said at the beginning of the segment, entertained me. Number 5.
Hold on, can I do a hot take because you said something before you go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Field of Dreams is one of the most overrated movies I've ever seen.
I actually agree with you. With that.
I don't like it. Yeah,
the
I don't
end
like it.
is fantastic with the dad. Can we have a catch?
Yeah, that's great. Other than that,
but the movie's a snooze fest.
I think The Natural is too.
Yeah, Natural is better than
The
Field of
Natural.
Dreams, but it's.
I don't like The Natural. I don't think I like baseball movies, but well, I don't know. Maybe I do. We're about to see.
All right.
My 5th movie on my list is Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore, to me, it's a classic. To me, it's the best golf movie of all time. I mean, I don't know that there's many other than that.
I had Tin Cup. I had Tin Cup on my list.
Caddyshack, Tin Cup, and Bagger Vance.
Yeah.
But Happy Gilmore is a classic. It really, it was part of that string of movies that put Adam Sandler on the map and made him a star and made him the go-to 90s guy as far as comedy movies go. Just a litany of quotes in that movie as well. I won't sit here and say all of them, but I shouldn't have been standing there. I say that quite often.
Listen, the scene with when he's daydreaming about the dwarf on the bike, that's still one of the hardest times I ever laughed at in a movie theater. Like I literally was in tears when I first saw that part.
It's got a great mix of like funny lines that aren't over the top. Like Adam Sandler in that time, like Billy Madison is full of just like over the top shit. Right. Happy Gilmore did a great job of splitting it. There was still the over the top stuff like the fight with Bob Barker, but then there were still just the little subtle lines that like when you watch it today as an adult, you can appreciate it. Like it's still funny.
Or like Carl Weathers with the hand and the alligator.
Yeah.
But that's still hilarious with Carl Weathers.
100%, dude.
Drew McGavin, also all-time heel.
Yeah.
And it makes it even better that dude still lives that persona.
Yep. Yeah, good for him.
Fantastic, man. Yeah, good for him. Seriously. Because a lot of people hate that. They hate that they get pigeonholed into that one role and that's all they're known for. But this dude embraced it. Good for him.
Yeah.
So that's my 5. My 4, Chris said, my 4 was Any Given Sunday. My top 3, you guys didn't have any of my top 3. My number 3 is what I believe personally to be Tom Hanks's greatest role. It's A League of Their Own, Jimmy Dugan. That movie is off the chain, and it's still today. You do not know, no one knows the ending of that movie, whether Dottie drops the ball on purpose or not.
The movie's good. I'm cool with that, but to say that that's Tom Hanks' best role.
So I'll say one. Let me also say this. I am not a Tom Hanks guy. I think he's people overrate him because when they watch him in movies, they're not necessarily rooting for the character in the movie. They're rooting for Tom Hanks.
He's a huge face.
Yeah.
Huge face.
He's Tom Hanks. He's the man. Like, I get it. That's great. He also only goes for Oscar roles, in my opinion. He's
not the only one that does that, though. But
no, he's not. He's not. But he only plays roles where he could potentially win an Oscar for Best Actor.
Yeah.
To me,
well, now I could play devil's advocate and say, does he turn that character or that role into that by his skill set?
I've heard that argument. He's a great actor. He's not necessarily. I don't have him as one of my top actors.
I don't either. I respect him, but I don't have him as like an upper echelon, on my list.
Yeah,
that was one of the movies I've never seen. That I'm embarrassed to say I've never seen.
Whoa!
I told you there was a couple.
You should have just kept that to yourself.
Oh boy! Wow, that's not great.
Now we're gonna have all these women talking about like that. You know, what I mean, you can't watch the female movie.
Look, I said I should have seen it.
That's going to save me from saying Tom Hanks is overrated. Everybody's going to be pissed at that.
Right.
They're going to hear Seltzer say he never watched it. Chris, did you know in that movie, a deleted scene was Jimmy Dugan and Dottie Henson kiss on the bus?
I did not.
Yeah, it's a deleted scene, and it's a good thing they deleted that. You don't need that.
No. Did you ever see the baseball documentary by Ken Burns?
No.
So it's one of the it is like the standard as far as baseball documentaries is concerned. It's 10 parts. It ranges from the entire history of baseball from like 1845 in its development until when it was filmed in like 1994. And then they added a last edition, which was the 10th inning, they called it, and that was in like the end of the Barry Bonds like the juicing era, basically. But they had a segment in the documentary where they talk about the female baseball league and a lot of those girls that were in it and stuff like that. So that was an interesting, and people followed that. They cared about it. That was not just like a super little thing. Like that was important to people at that time.
Yeah. Well, that's Adam. You got to watch that like tonight.
I know. I've been saying for years I got to watch it. I just never have.
Okay. Well, I won't listen. Next week on the pod, we'll get your review. I won't go quote any.
No pressure.
Yeah, Madonna, right. Gina Davis,
unbelievable cast.
Yeah.
And Chris, and Adam, you had to know this how the movie ended. I'm hoping, but Chris, what do you think? Did she drop the ball on purpose?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of still on that myself. I don't know. I don't know. You could say it's like Inception at the end. Like there's the
stop spinning, the
dreidel
top
stop. Yeah.
The dreidel.
it's a whatever, the top thing. You know what
I mean? Okay. I don't. For the record, I don't believe she dropped the ball on purpose. I think it was unintentional. All right, my number 2 movie you also didn't have, Varsity Blues. Varsity Blues, I can throw on at any point. Another just fantastic cast. John Voight, Coach Bud Kilmer, just an all-time heel within the team that you're rooting for in the movie. Just a cancer from the inside.
He's an awful coach.
Just an awful human being, only out there for himself, just wanting the record. Yeah. And the way that the team turns on him, it just an amazing movie. James Vanderbeek, not John. That's the wrestler, right?
John Moxley, is that what you're about to say? A little AEW going on?
His name is Mox in the movie, though. Billy Bob, Lance Harbor, played by the late Paul Walker.
Yeah.
And then
the only thing that was negative for me about that was, as much as it was cool for cinema, I thought that I don't think high school kids would have the balls to do that what they did with the coach. I don't think they had the balls to do that in real life.
It's not 100% realistic.
Yeah, that's the only thing that threw me off a little bit was that part. But the rest of the movie was pretty cool.
I forgot about that one. Not that I wouldn't have had a top 5, but I don't have it on my list because I blanked on that one.
It's another movie with a great soundtrack, and it also was one of those. Remember when MTV started producing movies? That was one of their first movies.
I was gonna say, yeah,
by MTV.
Yep.
And Scott Conn plays a great role as Tweeter too, just the dumb receiver. What's he say? He's Tweeter, you think jail's gonna be fun? Huh? he looks down at his pants and he goes, "What the F is that?"
And I saw that late. I didn't see that until like during the pandemic. It was one night and
oh really?
Yeah, and it was like 11 o'clock and I was still up and it was on and I was like, I've never seen this. It was a Friday night and I watched it and I was like, oh, it's pretty dope. It was fun.
The worst part of that movie for me is when they're on the game-winning drive at the end of the movie, and the mascot on the sideline for the opposing team is like dancing with the guys on the horse, and on first down, Mox just takes the snap and then he just throws it out of bounds and hits the guy.
Yeah.
And it's not called intentional grounding.
No,
they got to throw the flag on that.
Yeah, and everybody's like cheering it and whatnot.
Yeah.
All
right, so that's my number 2, and number one, guys. The Sandlot.
I bet you I got it on my. I went 12 deep.
I bet you one for you
12 somewhere.
Sandlot is an easy one for me. It is Americana. It somehow brings you back to your childhood because it reminds you of when you were a kid and whether it's you played baseball in a dusty yard, or for me, I grew up in, in the concrete jungle. So we played in our alleyway. We played baseball, we played football, we played hockey, whatever we get our hands on. It brings you back to being a kid again. Like everybody had that group where you're a bunch of ragtag misfits, but when you're on that playing field, like you're the man, you're emulating the all-time greats. Like you feel like your childhood is never going to end at that point. And this movie just it brings all that home. Every time you watch it, it brings a smile to your face. It's a movie that I've shared already with my son Jackson. Like he's been quoting it already. Like it's to me, that's the number one sports movie for me that I would watch again and again and again.
So I didn't have it on my list, but I respect the reasons why you said it. But the one thing I would say is that's unfortunate is I'm assuming Jackson likes the movie.
Yeah.
But it's probably really hard for him to get some of the homies to get together and do that kind of stuff these days, unfortunately, because they don't really play anywhere, these kids.
No, dude, it depends where you live, right? So we're fortunate where we live on a street where the houses are pretty close together, and we happen to live where there's 1, 2, 3, 4 boys on the block. We all live within a 3-house radius. So like I can look at my front door and they're all playing on the one kid's front yard.
Oh, that's good.
So there's 5. There's a couple kids that live like further down the street and like around the block. And as they get older, I can only imagine they're going to become bigger and grow in numbers. And then the elementary school is right around the corner with a baseball field, a big like huge grass field where they can go play.
Well, I hope they do.
I hear that point.
Yeah, because it's disappointing and depressing when you drive through so many different places that you used to play, or seeing fields that are empty, or basketball courts, and it's like these kids got to get out the house, like do something, get off the internet, get off the PS5, whatever you're on.
Well,
like,
listen to the 3K podcast first, then get off the internet, and then
right. True. Or maybe you could stay on the 3K podcast for a while at least, stream some episodes. But yeah, that's awesome that he's involved and wants to do that kind of stuff.
I had it on my list, Alan. You hit the nail on the head. My first sentence after I had it is reminds you of your childhood.
Yeah.
And Chris, you have that feeling. We used to obviously play, even before we played it on the hill, we used to play at the Y. Mm-hmm. I know. And if you remember, we played bounce pitch, and there was the home run fence, but then there was the fence behind the home run fence. And we know that feeling of hitting that ball over that second fence because you weren't getting it back.
Right.
The double fence.
Yeah.
So that there's that feeling, like just like in the movie when they hit that ball over the fence, and it's just like, we're done. We ain't getting it back.
Yeah.
Great. I have a poster of it up in my classroom. One of my kids one day came in. She was wearing the poster, like a T-shirt with the poster on the T-shirt. Like it still lives on.
I have a "You're Killing Me" Smalls T-shirt. I got one of them.
Yeah, with the is the great Ambino, is he like pointing to the fence or whatever?
Yeah,
that shirt.
Yeah. It's I feel bad for people who didn't have that as for a childhood, because of how much fun that was.
Yeah. And let's talk about how that movie has the greatest hat of all time. Smalls, the original hat with the brim that's about 2 feet long. Hey, Smalls, you got a fireplace? Yeah, throw it in there, man. And he gives him the other hat.
I hate the end when he's the broadcaster for the Dodgers, though.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up. Benny steals home. All right. If you don't mind, I'm going to run through a couple of my movies that didn't get mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for the bottom. So these are like 15 and 16. We don't get to talk. I have Brian's Song. Really good
movie. I'm impressed with you with that. I didn't think that you would have seen that.
I love Brian Piccolo.
That's a great movie.
I have Tin Cup. We mentioned it briefly as my golf movie. I have Creed on my list. I loved Creed, the first one.
Creed's a really good movie.
Really, yeah.
Bull Durham, another baseball movie. Two that I want to talk about. Well, I'm surprised. Well, this one I'll talk about, but I'm surprised you didn't have it on your list. He Got Game. I know you're a fan of He Got Game.
Oh, shit. Oh, no.
I actually, yeah. So that's on my list. It wasn't my top 5, but it's up there. It's awesome.
Al sounds like he needs to replace a movie.
Yeah, that's in my top 5 without a doubt.
Yeah,
all that Sandlot talk. Well, we're gonna put the number 1 up. Hold up.
So listen, we have a loyal listener, my father, who is obsessed with this movie, and I've seen it. It's not good, but it's got hilarious moments, and I've seen it so many times I've grown to love it. Fever Pitch.
Oh man,
That's a good movie, man. It's for what it is. You know what you're getting out of
The
it.
chemistry with Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore is fantastic. And it's just this over obsessed sports fan who can't get over the team. And I have this one line that just two lines that make me laugh the most. She's talking to taking him to Paris on this romantic vacation, and she goes, "You can't see us tangled up in the sheets with the Eiffel Tower in the background." She goes, "You see the Mariners are coming in and Pedro's pitching on Friday." And he goes, "No, on Saturday." He goes, "Schilling's pitching Friday."
Yeah, that movie when Griffey hits a home run off him at the end when he's on the Phillies.
No, that's Little Big League.
No. Isn't he on the Phillies?
No, that's your Summer Catch.
Summer Catch. That's what.
Oh.
Yeah, that movie's terrible.
Oh,
That's what I
Freddie
thought
Prinze
you were
Jr.
talking about.
That's Freddie Prinze Jr.
Right.
Yeah. And the other one is so again, this guy's this over compulsive Red Sox fan. He has season tickets, right? He has 2 tickets on like the third row. And every year he has his 3 friends come over and they do like a draft to see who's going to what games with him. And he's go, "Oh, you guys want Yankees tickets?" He goes, "You better start dancing." So he makes all his friends start dancing for Yankees tickets. And he goes, "That looks like Devil Ray dancing for you, buddy." It's just such a good movie. Chris, if you haven't seen it, if you think it's Summer Catch, I highly
No,
recommend
I haven't. Is that the one with was it is it Amy Poehler or Tina Fey or
No, it's Jimmy Fallon, Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barry? Okay, I knew it was somebody. Oh, Jimmy Fallon from SNL. That's what it was.
Yeah.
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 It's a good watch. Jeff Seltzer would be proud of you if you watched it.
it's an easy watch, and you can watch that with the missus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's always a good option.
My list in no particular order. You just mentioned one of them, but the 90s were ripe for kids baseball movies. Rookie of the Year, Little Big League, Angels in the Outfield. All 3 of those were.
I think Angels in the Outfield sucks.
they were all
I
what they
like
were.
Little Big
think
League, I
Rookie of the
love.
Year
I
sucks.
like Little Big League a lot.
Little Big League was
That was
great.
Brendan Fraser, right?
No, that's the rookie. Little Big League was there was the kid managing the Twins. I don't even know if any big name actors were in that.
I don't think there was. It was.
Oh
the-
no, I was
He's in
thinking
that.
of was it the Scout or something?
Yeah, the Scout.
Yeah.
That was the one with Brendan Fraser.
That's Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, Little Big League
Um,
was just a kid and his mom. That was it.
But they
Oh,
had
no, I
like
see that one.
pro baseball players, like Randy Johnson's in it.
Was it like Corbin Burnson? Was he the was he the dude? Who was the dude that like the mom was hooking up with?
No,
And he
that's
got
rookie of the
pissed.
year. That's rookie of the year. Oh no, you're right. You're right. No, you're right. I don't know the guy's name, but
Corbin Burnson loved him some baseball.
yeah, he was a lefty, played center field for them.
Yeah,
Good
I
movie.
don't know. I'm trying to look it up, but anyway, so I had those Cool Runnings. I had Waterboy. I had Space Jam, Mighty Ducks 2.
Sarah would love you for Space Jam. That was her number 1 or number
Space
2.
Jam,
Sorry,
I
behind
thought
Running
about
Back Titans
Space Jam.
was Space Jam.
And then I had 2 that it might be a little niche for me. Do you guys remember 61 on HBO about Roger
Yes.
Maris breaking the
Yes.
record?
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
Oh, that was a fantastic movie.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know if it holds up now. Like I don't know what it would be like watching it today, but I remember at the time being really entertained by it and learning a lot about it. And then my favorite, I don't know if it's my favorite, but great boxing movie, The Fighter.
Never saw it.
Mark Wahlberg. and,
Yeah, Christian Bale's in that too. Isn't
Yeah, yeah, Christian Bale. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great movie, man.
I
Adams.
had excuse me. I had He Got Game on my list, the remaining list. I also had I'm surprised that we didn't say this movie. No one said White Man Can't Jump.
Yeah.
White Man Can't Jump is so fun. I love that movie. Such a fun movie.
Really good movie.
I also
Good. I was gonna say I thought about it, but I haven't seen it in so long.
Oh man, and I really don't have any interest in the remake. I know Jack Harlow was in the remake with I forget who it is. I mean,
Pass.
when it comes out, and I think it's in the summer or something, maybe I'll watch it. But right now, at this point, like the original's still the standard for me.
Yeah.
I mean, Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes, like, come on, like y'all ain't getting better.
Great chemistry with those two.
Yeah. Rosie Perez, the whole thing. I also put The Wrestler on my list. The Wrestler, if you're a wrestling fan, is extremely realistic. This is a guy who at one point was always just trying to make it to the big time, and didn't know when his time was up. And he just kept grinding, and that was his life. Similar to how in real life a lot of these wrestlers are. We've seen it, plenty documentaries, things like that, where these guys just hang on way too long. And in the process of that destroys their lives, their families' lives, all kind of stuff. So from a life piece, that was one I had on there. Also,
Randy the Ram.
huh?
Randy the Ram, right? Randy the Ram Robinson, is it?
Something like that. Yeah.
And
Like
then that's a cliffhanger at the end of that movie, similar to Inception.
Yes, it is.
Similarly, what do you think he dies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he knew he was gonna get messed up at least from that move.
Yeah.
But I think he did, yeah. Because also I have, which arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest documentary of all time, Hoop Dreams.
I never saw it, but everything when I was Googling to make sure I didn't miss, everything has that really highly rated.
Hoop Dreams is I mean, to this day, it was made, I think, like 94 or something like that, but you can watch it now and it still rings true. Following young high school basketball players in their neighborhood and things like that as they made it to rise up the ranks to play college and try to play college ball and pro ball and things like that. Also in a documentary I had When We Were Kings, which followed up Muhammad Ali and George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. Blue Chips.
Yeah, Blue Chips good.
Blue Chips and
the Blue Chips, the plot is good. The act, Nick Nolte's horrible.
Oh no, yeah, it's just one of those, like, it's so bad it's fun.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's why ultimately I didn't put it in my top 5. But Above the Rim, which I'll be honest, you could argue that it's not a sports movie; it's more of a street movie. Tupac's in it, Omar Epps, all those guys. Young guy trying to make a decision between following his dreams of playing pro and playing in high school and playing in this big tournament that everybody's going to be at, these scouts and things like that, versus going into the street life and going into a gang that Tupac was in charge of and the head of. So that's also a fun 90s movie. Dope soundtrack. It brought us to a classic. Regulators! No. Brought us that. So that was like my best of the rest, but I'm pretty confident in my top 5.
Three movies that we didn't mention that were a little bit ahead of the whole gender conversation. Ladybugs. Remember that movie Ladybugs with
Vaguely.
Damn it, I'm blanking on I get no respect. Who was that?
Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah. And the kid plays on the girls' soccer team. And then the flip side of that, She's the Man. That's actually not a bad movie with Amanda Bynes when she plays on the boys' soccer team. And then Juwanna Man.
Yeah. I have one more that I have on my list that nobody mentioned. I actually think it's a good movie. I had it in my top 8. Coach Carter. I'm a fan of Coach Carter.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah. That's
we missed The Blind Side. That's a big one. We missed $1 Million Baby, and we missed Love and Basketball.
Dude,
Casey would kill me if I didn't mention Love and Basketball.
But Megan said the same thing when I was going through the list earlier. She said, "Make sure you shout out that's my number 1 is Love and Basketball."
Ladies love Love and Basketball. Yeah.
That's her number 1 too.
What's that line when she's like, "What? Like, we'll play for what? I'll play for my heart."
He's like, "Play for what?" He's like, "Your heart."
Yeah. The movie's great until the end. The end is terrible.
Oh god,
he's a great character.
Yeah, 100%. I love how he doesn't make it.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's great.
There's something to be said that we haven't had any really good sports movies in the last 7-8 years outside of maybe like the Creeds.
We haven't had any good movies in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Was it a cat? What was that? You got a cat on your lap?
Sick, man. I got all kind of sounds coming out of my throat right now.
But I think we could wrap it up. Chris, why don't you give everybody what's your prediction for Best Picture on Sunday? We'll close with that.
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
All right.
That's my prediction.
Is there one that like I would know, like somebody that's gonna win something that is Brendan Fraser up for his role in The Whale?
Whale, yeah. So he just won I believe he won the SAG award, the Screen Actors Guild, which is a big deal because Austin Butler was a heavy favorite for Elvis.
Yeah, Elvis is best
and he's won basically. I mean, he's pretty much been cleaning up, and that was the one he did not win. So that puts Brendan Fraser as a legit shot for the Oscar. I still got to go to Austin Butler. He literally turned into Elvis to the point where he still talks like Elvis. Like, if you ever saw the Jim Carrey the documentary where Jim Carrey they chronicled Jim Carrey when he played Andy Kaufman and what it did to him, and they say like the soul of Andy Kaufman literally went into Jim Carrey. That's how great he was on and off the camera when they filmed that. That's kind of how this kid was with Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I think he'll win that. But yeah, everything everywhere all at once, I think is. I'm just happy Top Gun Maverick got a nomination. I was shocked by it, but it deserved it. It was a really, really good movie. They did a great job with that.
Yeah.
Great job with that.
I haven't seen it.
That'll wrap it up for episode 35, boys. 35 episodes.
KD.
35 and still alive. We can run for president.
Sixers win tonight by 20 plus points. It's been a good
Impressive.
week overall. We will see you guys next week and maybe talk some Phillies baseball.
Let's go. Bring it on.
Let's drop that beat.
The defending NL champs.
Drop that beat.